Chapter 1056. The birthday boy wants to wear this hat. Feng Beibei said with a smile as she took out a crown made of cardboard from behind her, as if she was performing a magic trick. No problem. Poplar Fruit smiled and put it on, then cut the cake for Kiki to eat. I want this piece, cut it like this. Kiki wants to eat the part with strawberries. Kiki stood on tiptoe and looked around excitedly with her two small arms on the coffee table. You can't eat too much, be careful not to become a little fat girl. Poplar Fruit said. Even so, he still cut a big piece for Kiki. Poplar Fruit also cut a piece for Feng Beibei, but when he handed it over, he saw Feng Beibei looking at his head with a sly look. Poplar Fruit quickly said, No, we can't waste food. I made this cake. Feng Beibei laughed like a little devil. But it's my birthday, and you've already given it to me. Poplar Fruit quickly protected the rest of the cake and said. Kiki's mouth was already full of cream. She looked at her father in confusion and kindly advised. Papa, you should share it with Mama. A good child who knows how to share with others is a good child. Well, with Kiki in the middle, Feng Beibei finally gave up the bad idea. She still said with some regret, There's so much cake, our family can't finish it. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said, How about we call Mosquito and the others over? That guy said that he wanted to treat Anlin to a candlelight dinner. He's probably still outside. Let them bring some home to eat when they come back, and try your cooking. Feng Beibei nodded and smiled. Sure. Give them half of it. I don't want to eat so much. I'll get fat if I eat too much cake at night. However, at this time, Kiki anxiously wiped her mouth that was covered with cream with her sleeve and said vaguely, Papa, but Kiki still wants to eat. We can't finish it. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Look, such a big cake. The situation was completely different from when she advised her father to share the food. Chi-Chi pouted and said, If you can't finish it, you can put it in the fridge. Chi-Chi can eat it tomorrow morning, lunch, and dinner. The cake won't taste good tomorrow. Yanghua advised. Also, you can't eat cake every day. No matter how delicious something is, you'll get tired of eating it every day. Papa, I'm not tired of eating cake. Kiki was on the verge of crying. Feng Beibei had to do it. She squatted down, hugged Kiki and said with a smile, Yes, the cake is so delicious. I'm sure you won't get tired of it. After comforting Kiki, Feng Beibei slowly reasoned with Feng Beibei. But Kiki, do you remember that Uncle Mosquito brought super delicious rose burrito for Kiki last time? Kiki thought for a moment, nodded and said, Yes, the rose burrito is very delicious. Uncle Mosquito has delicious food, and he gives it to Kiki. Feng Beibei smiled and said, We have delicious cake now, shouldn't we give it to Uncle Mosquito? Kiki began to hesitate and was not as resistant as before. As the old saying goes, if you want to take, you must give first. Feng Beibei explained. It means that if you want to get something, you should give it to others first. Sharing with each other can make us happier and more satisfied. Don't you think so? Kiki looked at the cake reluctantly, but finally nodded. Half of the cake was cut by Poplar Fruit, packed and put in the refrigerator, waiting for Song Jiwen to come later, so that he could take it back and eat it with Chen Anlin. But the birthday was not over yet. Now it was time for Poplar Fruit to open the presents. Kiki, come here and sit on Dad's lap. Poplar Fruit smiled and called Kiki, who was hiding behind Feng Beibei, over. He held her in his arms and asked with a smile, Tell Dad which is Kiki's present? Kiki immediately pointed to the bigger of the two presents on the tea table and said, It's this. The present inside is. Hey Kiki, you can't say it. It's more interesting to let your dad open the present himself. Feng Beibei quickly interrupted Kiki's secret. Chi-Chi blinked her eyes and covered her mouth with her two white little palms. She started wriggling in her father's arms while making whimpering sounds. Okay, Dad will now see what Kiki's present is for Dad. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. He was actually looking forward to it. Because this was the first birthday present that Kiki had given to Dad. Poplar Fruit held the big box in front of him and Kiki, and began to open the ribbon on the outside. Kiki, come and help, Kiki said excitedly. She also had a special fondness for opening presents. Even if it was a present that she made herself, she would still open it enthusiastically. Wow. After tearing open the paper packaging and opening the box, Poplar Fruit exclaimed and praised somewhat exaggeratedly. "What is this? A rag doll? What a beautiful rag doll." With Fong Bei, Poplar Fruit gradually became accustomed to praise. When Poplar Fruit took it out, it was immediately grabbed by Kiki. The little girl held the rag doll proudly and said, "Papa, this was made by Kiki herself. And it's the first rag doll that Kiki made." Fong Bei added with a smile. Here, they were all sewn by Kiki." Kiki pointed, and then stretched out her little finger to show Poplar Fruit, and said, "Papa, look, Kiki's hand was pricked by a needle." Indeed, there was a small dot on the pad of Kiki's little red finger. Poplar Fruit rubbed it with heartache and asked, "Does it still hurt?" "It doesn't hurt anymore." Kiki shook her head and said. There was a little blood at that time, but Kiki was very strong and didn't cry out in pain. Fong Bei said to Poplar Fruit apologetically, "I didn't pay attention." "It doesn't matter. It's good for a girl to suffer a little occasionally. Life can't always be smooth sailing." Poplar Fruit said with a smile. It was inevitable that he would feel heartache. After all, she was his own flesh and blood. However, Poplar Fruit was not as fragile as the parents in the city. When he was 2 years old in his hometown, he ran around in open crotch pants. Girls were the same. When they fell and hurt, they would cry for a while, and then stand up by themselves. They would not be delicate and wait for people to coax them. A baby eagle that lived in the warm embrace of its parents forever could not fly freely in the sky. Poplar Fruit could not be a tiger father or tiger mother, but he would not spoil Kiki. The rag doll was actually made quite crudely. It was not very balanced with cotton padding, and there was also a rough needle and thread, as well as a crooked painted face. However, Poplar Fruit was already very satisfied. This was the first rag doll that his daughter made herself, and she gave it to her father. Poplar Fruit decided to make a glass box and put it on the bookshelf in the study, so that he could see it every day. Chapter 1057. However, Poplar Fruit, who wanted to frame the doll, obviously underestimated Kiki's love for dolls. Kiki eagerly watched her father take the doll and look at it over and over again. Finally, she couldn't help but hold her father's hand and say, "Papa, Papa, it's not like this." Then the little girl held the doll and refused to let it go. Poplar Fruit was stunned and said with a smile, "Kiki, isn't this the present you gave me?" Yes. This doll had been given to Papa. Kiki reluctantly looked at the doll in her arms. After hesitating for a while, she reluctantly gave it to her father. "Papa, please take care of Annie." Tears began to roll in Chi-Chi's large eyes, and the way her small mouth puffed up slightly made her look so aggrieved that it made people want to take pity on her. She even gave such a beautiful girl's name to this simple doll. It seemed that Kiki must have spent a lot of effort to create it. In fact, Poplar Fruit didn't want to compete with his daughter for the ownership of a small doll. He said with a smile, "How about this? Papa will share it with Kiki. Every week, Kiki can have it for 3 days. How about that? 3 days a week, from nothing to almost half of the ownership." It seemed to be very cost-effective. Kiki was a little surprised. She asked with a smile, "Really? Can I really share Annie with Kiki?" "Of course. Papa will definitely share with Kiki, if he has something good," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. He looked at Fong Bei, who was smiling next to him. Fong Bei gave him a thumbs up. "Great." She counted with her fingers. "Then Chi-Chi can see Annie on Monday, sleep on Tuesday, and continue to play with Annie on Wednesday. If I can't see her on Thursday, I can see her again on Friday. If I can't see her on Saturday, I can see her again on Sunday. If I can't see her on Sunday, I can see her again on Sunday." The little girl counted again, but it still didn't work. She couldn't see Annie on Sunday for 2 days. She pouted her little mouth again. "Papa, how about we add another day? Just 1 more day." Kiki tried to bargain with her father. She took his hand and acted like a spoiled child. "Okay, deal," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Kiki immediately jumped up excitedly. She hugged her father's neck and kissed his face twice. "Papa is so good. Papa is the best papa in the world." She was really a little girl who was easily. But Kiki was really stupid. Didn't Papa's things belong to Kiki? Would Poplar Fruit not let Kiki play with the doll in the future? Okay, now let's open the baby's gift. Kiki held the doll and happily sat down to play with it. Poplar Fruit did a chest expansion exercise and looked at Fong Beibei with a smile. What did you give me? Poplar Fruit gently shook the small square box in his hand and asked with a smile. A book? A picture frame? Guess. Fong Beibei smiled slyly, but she didn't give him a hint. Okay, I'll open it. Poplar Fruit said deliberately. Opening the package quickly, Poplar Fruit took out a piece of wood. How is this wood? Fong Beibei was angered by Poplar Fruit. She pointed at it and said, Look carefully. Poplar Fruit took the opportunity to hug Fong Beibei as if he was hugging a large Kiki. He was very proud. He was deliberately teasing her. How is this wood? Fong Beibei was still holding on to Poplar Fruit's words. She asked Kiki, Kiki, tell me, is this wood? Kiki shook her head. She knew what kind of gift was inside. She said seriously, No, it's Mama Ma's CD. Okay. I'm just kidding. It's a beautiful box. Did you make it yourself? Poplar Fruit smiled and touched the Chinese and English version of the words, to Uncle, on the wooden box. Of course, the English version was a flowery deer and an apple carving. Obviously, this to Uncle was inspired by the name of the piano piece to Alice. No, this box was custom-made on Taobao. The CD inside was recorded by me. Fong Beibei corrected. Why is Poplar Fruit so angry when it's my turn today? Poplar Fruit opened it and saw a CD about the size of a CD lying quietly inside. The original CD was blank. The master refused to make a cover for me, so I asked Brother Mosquito to help find someone to make a sticker of our picture and put it on it. Fong Beibei pointed to the picture of their family on the CD and said to Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit from behind put his head on Fong Beibei's neck and gently rubbed her ear. He reached out and stroked the cover of the CD. Needless to say, the photo was a photo that he and Fong Beibei especially liked in ouching. The cover was slightly frosted and thick, but every bit of it made Poplar Fruit feel Fong Beibei's care and love. There was no CD player at home. Fortunately, in the home theater set that he bought, the DVD player could play CDs. Poplar Fruit moved Fong Beibei to the sofa next to him. He walked over to put the CD into the player. Fong Beibei shyly squatted to the side, hugging her knees with both hands, and asked, Do you want to play it like this? Why don't you listen to it with headphones? My girlfriend recorded a song for me. Of course, it has to be played openly. I want to listen to it seriously, like listening to classical music. Poplar Fruit pulled Fong Beibei's hand and said with a smile. The two of them returned to the sofa, and the music from the stereo was played. There was a little noise, but that was because the recording studio Fong Beibei chose was not that good. However, the flaws could not obscure the beauty. Fong Beibei's soft singing voice was like the singing of a nightingale, making Poplar Fruit intoxicated. The first song was When Love Is Near, a milk tea song, but Fong Beibei sang it with a sweet taste. Every time when love is near, I feel that he is holding you tightly. He disturbs your heart, covers your eyes, but doesn't let you know where to go. Poplar Fruit hugged Fong Beibei tightly, letting her lean on his shoulder. The two of them sweetly lay on the sofa, listening to Fong Beibei's singing in the living room. No one spoke. Even the noisy Kiki closed her eyes and shook her head to listen. Just like when she was a child, she especially liked singing, not to mention Fong Beibei's beautiful singing. Poplar Fruit's favorite song was Fong Beibei's cover of Fan Fan's Our Anniversary. I'm willing to give up my pride for the person I love, saying that life is dull without you. Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei looked at each other tenderly. Only they could taste and understand the charm of the song. The lyrics sang Fong Beibei's heart, but wasn't it also Poplar Fruit's heart? Without Fong Beibei, how could his life be as happy as it was now? How could it be as sweet as honey every day as it was now? Do you like my present? Yes, I like it very much. How much do you like it? Yes, I like it so much that I have to listen to it every day to fall asleep. Hee. Chapter 1058. The reporters searched Beijing for an entire day before they found traces of Poplar Fruit on his Weibo. It turned out that this fella ran back to Guangzhou right after the press conference, and even had a sweet birthday. However, even if they went to Guangzhou, It would be difficult to interview Poplar Fruit. This fella simply refused to be interviewed and no one could do anything about it. On the other hand, the entertainment reporters were happier. They knew Poplar Fruit's personality, so they simply used Poplar Fruit's Weibo to create hype. It had to be said that although Yang Guo was not considered a celebrity in the entertainment industry, she had the aura of a celebrity. Her entire family was filled with handsome men, beautiful women, and cute children. Just based on her looks alone, it was enough to attract a lot of attention. Poplar Fruit's public display of affection attracted a lot of hatred. It was too torturous for single people. But it was also envied and loved by many fans. A female fan commented, "I see the news every day about breakups, divorces, or cheating third parties. The entertainment industry is in a mess. Our Appa is still the best. The two of them have been together since last year. They're in the same boat through thick and thin. They're so happy that it makes people feel at ease." This comment received a lot of support. Of course, the entertainment reporters weren't limited to reports. They recklessly guessed. According to reports, Fang Beibei and Poplar Fruit have been living together for a long time. A classmate even revealed that they've met each other's parents. It seems like good news is coming. I wonder if Poplar Fruit, who has always wanted to give Kiki a happy and stable family, will marry Fang Beibei early. It's also possible that they'll get married the year after next, when Fang Beibei graduates. The latter is more likely. Because Poplar Fruit was also very famous overseas, the recent storm and domestic news reports were also followed by the foreign media. Of course, the foreign media didn't care about Poplar Fruit's love life. They were interested in Poplar Fruit's true talent. For this reason, Alan teased Poplar Fruit on Skype, "Leon, you're on Jim's talk show." What? Poplar Fruit was confused by Alan's strange words. It was on Jim's talk show. Jim talked about you. TSK. Even someone as harsh as Jim praised you. Alan laughed. In fact, it wasn't just the talk shows that Alan liked to watch. There were many news outlets that used the video from Poplar Fruit's press conference. Then they invited many language experts to translate and analyze it, and the results were all good. There was even a famous linguist, Richie Van Gaal, who was a professor at Harvard School of Languages, who said, "Leon is a genius. Yes, if he applied to Harvard, we would not hesitate to offer him admission and a full scholarship. However, I don't think I can teach him anything." But Harvard has the richest academic resources and the best linguists in the world, right? Haha. What I mean is that he should study at Harvard for a few years and then stay at Harvard to teach. Richie laughed. Yes, I don't doubt his ability and potential. He can become the most precious gem at Harvard together with the other geniuses. Richie's praise for Poplar Fruit happened at the end of November. Although this comment caused a frenzy of discussion in China, no one could understand why Richie thought so highly of Poplar Fruit. Later, when reporters asked, Richie just smiled and did not say anything. It was not until mid-December that the mystery was revealed, but that was all in the future. After returning from Beijing, Poplar Fruit rushed to teach his students for 3 weeks. In these 3 weeks, including weekends, he taught the students 5 weeks of classes. The school helped to arrange the classes, and the reason why they were so packed was to make time for Poplar Fruit to go to Sweden. Last year, when Poplar Fruit went to Sweden, Mo Yen was the focus of the media, and he was the pride of the country. This year, Poplar Fruit went to Sweden because of his own efforts. The whole country was looking forward to him winning glory for the country. It didn't make sense, but this year, everyone had their eyes on Poplar Fruit, hadn't they? Under such a national system, the school naturally had to protect Poplar Fruit. If Poplar Fruit didn't want to go to Sweden, the whole school might persuade him to go and persuade him. Arranging the classes didn't affect Poplar Fruit too much. The students, on the other hand, had to work harder. After all, they had to finish 5 weeks' worth of classes in 3 weeks, and they had to spend their weekends on the classes. What made Poplar Fruit feel ashamed and gratified was that his students were understanding. They didn't complain, and they worked hard to cooperate with Poplar Fruit's teaching. During this period of time, Yanghua even delayed the time when she went to see where her father went with Chi-Chi in order to attend classes. Like Poplar Fruit, Fang Beibei also became busy. Because she had won the special prize of the modeling competition twice in a row, Fong Beibei was favored by many teachers and professors. A professor even asked Fong Beibei to join his research group. It was a great opportunity. In this research group, except for Fong Beibei, who was an undergraduate student, the other 6 students were all excellent graduate students and doctoral students. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. However, if she joined the research group, Fong Beibei would become very busy, and she wouldn't be able to accompany Poplar Fruit to Sweden. However, even though Fong Beibei was reluctant, Poplar Fruit still persuaded Fong Beibei to seize the opportunity. There will be plenty of opportunities to go abroad together in the future. Plus, I didn't win the prize. The leader of the research group is an academician. An academician. After joining the research group, Fong Beibei sometimes came out of the research room at 7 o'clock at night. The weather was getting colder. Poplar Fruit naturally wouldn't let Fong Beibei go home alone in the cold wind. Whether he was at school or at home, Poplar Fruit would drive to pick up Fong Beibei and go home together. However, Poplar Fruit was going abroad soon. For the sake of convenience and safety, before Poplar Fruit left, he helped Fong Beibei move some daily necessities and a bed back to school. During the days when Poplar Fruit was away, Fong Beibei stayed at school. "Baby, take care of yourself." When they parted at the airport, Poplar Fruit hugged Fong Beibei, who had a slight cold recently. His finger brushed across her slightly red nose. "Don't be outside in the cold wind. Wear good clothes and take your medicine on time. I will call back to supervise." "Okay." Fong Beibei leaned her head against Poplar Fruit's warm chest, nodded and said, "Don't worry. When you come back, I will appear in front of you healthy." "Ha." Kiki, who was a little tired from waiting for the plane, yawned. She blinked her big misty eyes, leaned in the arms of her father and mother, and muttered, "Mama, don't worry. Kiki and Papa will be back soon." However, who knew if the little girl, who was still very warm now, would have a good time abroad and forget about home. Chapter 1059. There were no direct flights from Yangcheng to Sweden, so the best choice was to take a plane from Harbor City. However, Yang still chose to travel from Yangcheng to Bali. It wasn't because of anything else, but because Aunt Jenny, the daughter of grandmother Menluo, wanted to meet him in Bali. However, when Poplar Fruit arrived in Bali, Jenny called and said that the flight would be delayed, and that she would not be able to arrive the next day. She would probably arrive the day after tomorrow at the earliest. Therefore, Poplar Fruit decided to stay in Bali and take Kiki to visit Ardal. When they arrived at the familiar city of Bali, Chi-Chi had long since shouted that she wanted to go and play with her little friend sister Luo Danny. It was just that Yang Guo was worried that she would miss out on important matters, so she didn't agree. However, this was not because of the media's previous speculation about the relationship between Poplar Fruit and Givenchy. Although Poplar Fruit had declined Ardal's invitation to attend this year's Fashion Week, it did not affect the friendship between Poplar Fruit and Ardal. Ardal also clearly distinguished between business and friendship. As for Givenchy, it was even more unlikely to become enemies with Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit was unique, but there were countless models on the runway. Even if Poplar Fruit had declined the invitation, there were still thousands of models eager to appear on Givenchy's runway. Givenchy even renewed a new advertising contract with Poplar Fruit, because they thought highly of Poplar Fruit. These contracts would be executed at the beginning of next year. Poplar Fruit was really busy at the end of the year, so the advertisements would be released in the Asian market, just like last year. This was the first time in the 21st century that Givenchy had lowered its head to accommodate a celebrity model. Of course, this also had something to do with Ardal, the new second-in-command of Givenchy. The relationship between Ardal and Poplar Fruit was still very good. They often talked on the phone. Ardal, who used to be the leader of the Asian region, had a better understanding of Chinese culture. He always felt that Poplar Fruit was the savior of his life. He even felt that his achievements today were related to Poplar Fruit's help. Of course, putting aside those unrealistic metaphysics, Poplar Fruit was also a good friend worth making. Now, Poplar Fruit wasn't a model, nor did Ardal help him. He stood on the world stage by himself and received the attention of the world. Ardal admired him for that. Speaking of Luo Danny and Kiki, the two girls were very good friends. The only regret was that they hadn't been able to see each other in the past year, because Ardal had been too busy. He had just returned to Bali to take control of Givenchy. There were many people and things that he needed to take care of, so Luo Danny didn't have much of a chance to visit China. However, it was true that they would meet once a week via the internet to chat and catch up on their feelings. Ardal didn't object. Instead, he agreed. Because of Luo Danny and Kiki's communication, it was a good opportunity for Luo Danny to improve. Ardal really liked Kiki. Not only was she cute, but she was also smart. In terms of IQ, she had definitely inherited her father's excellent genes. He had never seen a foreigner. My daughter, who was only 2 years old, could speak French more fluently than Luo Danny, who was 7 or 8 years old. Luo Danny and Kiki communicated on the internet. Most of the time, Kiki was the one who talked to Luo Danny. Kiki would tell a lot of stories about what she had seen and heard. Imperceptibly, Luo Danny also learned a lot about Chinese culture and knowledge. Of course, Luo Danny would also share with Kiki the new knowledge she had learned in the aristocratic education. However, Kiki's learning speed was so fast that it gave Luo Danny an indescribable pressure. So after every communication, the housekeeper would praise Luo Danny's learning spirit to Ardal. This time, Poplar Fruit's sudden visit made Ardal overjoyed. He couldn't leave, so he sent the housekeeper to pick up Poplar Fruit and insisted that Poplar Fruit stay in his manor. The hotel that Poplar Fruit booked was cancelled in less than half an hour. Lorgio. As soon as Ardal's extended Bentley stopped, the housekeeper opened the door. Luo Danny rushed out excitedly and shouted Kiki's name again in broken Chinese. Kiki. Sister Luo Danny. Kiki also ran out from her father's side. The two girls hugged each other happily. Of course, Luo Danny was still taller than Kiki because of the age gap. Lorgio, I really thought that you wouldn't be able to come. When Luo Danny and Kiki met, they had endless things to talk about. You said that Uncle Leon was not free, so I asked Grandpa to send me to Sweden to play with you. That's because Grandma Jenny hasn't arrived yet, Papa took me to play with you. Kiki explained. It was a little difficult, because she didn't understand why her father suddenly changed his mind. However, the result was good, wasn't it? Kiki had been running around the room excitedly, because she could see her friends. Then, when she heard that she could live in Luo Danny's manor, she was even happier. My daughters chattered nonstop. In the end, Poplar Fruit and the housekeeper urged them to get into the Bentley happily. However, they ran to a more spacious seat in the back to chat hand in hand. Poplar Fruit chatted with the housekeeper in the front. Wasn't it a Rolls-Royce before? Mr. Housekeeper? Poplar Fruit asked. The housekeeper elegantly took out a bottle of red wine from the small refrigerator and asked Poplar Fruit if he wanted to open it. Poplar Fruit waved his hand. Then he changed the bottle of non-alcoholic iced drink for Poplar Fruit and explained, Dear Mr. Leon, the Rolls-Royce was driven out by Master Steve. Miss Luo Danny prefers this Bentley. This Bentley is. So, he got it, but the housekeeper was too polite and long-winded. Later, Luo Danny didn't need the housekeeper to serve her. She skillfully found the drink and handed it to Kiki. Kiki handed the Poplar Fruit to help her open it. Sister Luo Danny. I remember that you already sleep alone, right? Kiki asked enviously. I still don't dare to sleep alone. Yes. Luo Danny invited Kiki, using the Chinese name that everyone was familiar with. Can you sleep with me tonight? I have a lot of things to say to you. Kiki really wants to, but Kiki wants to ask Kiki's papa. After Kiki finished speaking, she turned her head and looked at Poplar Fruit expectantly. Poplar Fruit inserted the straw into the uncapped drink and handed it to Kiki. He smiled and said, Of course, no problem. But, you have to promise that you can't chat and delay your sleep. Kiki must sleep before 9 o'clock. Before Poplar Fruit finished speaking, Kiki and Luo Danny hugged each other excitedly and cried out. The housekeeper next to them was speechless. This etiquette learning was a waste of time. Chapter 1060. At 9:30 in the evening, the two naughtiest kids were tired from playing. Under Poplar Fruit's reminder, they hugged each other and went to sleep. This was the first time that Kiki slept with friends other than her family. Poplar Fruit was worried. He was worried that Kiki would be scared when she woke up in the middle of the night, so he asked the nanny to take care of her. Don't worry. The manor is very safe. There are maids taking care of her. There will be no problem. Ardal waved her hand and said to Poplar Fruit. Ardal came back late at night and was not in a hurry to sleep. She chatted with Poplar Fruit in the magnificent hall. Ardal naturally would not tell Poplar Fruit about work. Even if she did, Poplar Fruit would not understand. But when they talked about the interesting events of this year's Fashion Week, the two of them had a common topic. Even Poplar Fruit, who had left the modeling industry for a year, was very interested. It seems that you are still very interested in the modeling industry. Why don't you want to come back? Ardal asked. Poplar Fruit shook his head and said with a smile, I am not a professional model. My main focus is on my studies and work. If I come to Bali Fashion Week, it will take me a month to rehearse and perform. It's too long. This year's Bali Fashion Week has many Chinese faces, Ardal said. Our modeling team also has 3 models from mainland China. Leon, do you know? This is all because of your excellent performance last year. If you come here, you will definitely be the leader of Chinese models. Poplar Fruit waved his hand and said with a wry smile, Ardal, don't say that. I am just one of the luckier ones. Compared to the efforts of others, my success is not worth mentioning. With more and more Chinese models on the international stage, there were more and more opportunities for Chinese models. Poplar Fruit was happy and proud of them. That night, Zhang Zian chatted with Ardal for a long time. The next day, Ardal went to the company to deal with her work, while Poplar Fruit took the 2 girls out to play. However, at noon, what made Kiki and Luo Danny extremely excited was that another friend of theirs, Little Seven, had rushed over from England. To be exact, it was an invitation from Luo Danny. She had even sent her family's helicopter to pick them up. Beckham, the Spice Girls, and their eldest son, Brooklyn, were also there. Little Seven and Kiki often contacted each other. Kiki often showed her pictures of the baby panda she adopted. This was also the reason why Little Seven called Kiki Big Sister Panda when they met. In fact, there was a big age gap between my daughters. Luo Danny was 5 years older than Kiki, and Kiki was 2 months older than Little Seven. However, this 2-month gap was huge, because in terms of figure, Kiki seemed to be 2 years older than Little Seven. However, age was not an obstacle to their communication at all. Little Seven was actually very clever and cute. Although she always had a pink pacifier in her mouth, she could think clearly when she spoke. The 3 little girls were talking about the toys that girls play with. Even the hot girls had a hard time keeping up with their thoughts, let alone the other 3 boys. Let's go out and play. Beckham put her arms around Brooklyn and Poplar Fruit's necks and said with a smile, Leon, let's play football, shall we? Poplar Fruit was 5 or 6 centimeters taller than Beckham, and Brooklyn was a little shorter. Beckham felt awkward with her arms around the 2 of them, so she gave up as soon as they walked out of the door. I'm terrible at football. Poplar Fruit scratched his head in shame and said, One of you is the golden right foot, the captain of the England football team, and the other is the star of hope in the football world. I'm really showing off my slight skill in front of an expert if I play football in front of you. Although it was a Chinese idiom, Poplar Fruit spoke in authentic British English, which made Beckham and the others feel very close to him. Don't worry, this kid's football aptitude is not good enough. Beckham laughed and said, He has now retired from the youth training camp. Dad, can you not expose other people's shortcomings like this? Brooklyn said gloomily. It's okay, Beckham said with a laugh. Didn't you say that you wanted to enter the modeling industry? Leon is one of the best models in the world. You should ask Leon for advice. Poplar Fruit waved his hand and said with a smile, I haven't been a model for a long time, and I haven't even been in contact with this industry. I'm afraid that I will mislead you. I think I can call Uncle Leon Big Brother. Brooklyn smiled and put his arm around Poplar Fruit's shoulder. He said, We don't have a big age gap. He was only 11 years older than Poplar Fruit, and 13 years older than Poplar Fruit and Beckham. The housekeeper brought a football, and they played football on the grass outside the house. The manor was very large, and even had a natural grass field of tens of thousands of square meters. It was very beautiful with mountains and rivers. This was a wealthy area on the outskirts of Paris, more than 40 kilometers away from the city of Bali, and there were more than a dozen manors like this nearby. Although Beckham said that Brooklyn was terrible, in fact, he was Beckham's son after all. He was good at juggling the ball, dribbling the ball, pedaling, and so on. He was so skilled that it was as if football was a part of his body. Flashy but impractical. Beckham disdainfully added salt to the wound for his son. He said, "You can't be a football player because you only care about playing these tricks. In a real game, how many people will give you the chance to perform acrobatics?" Beckham's words made a lot of sense. Even Poplar Fruit, who did not play football or watch football games, knew that the physical confrontation in English football was very intense. With Brooklyn's tall and thin figure, it was easy for him to be sent flying. "Leon, come and play too." Beckham laughed as he kicked the football at his feet to Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit tried to juggle the ball, and as a result, the football was sent flying on the second try. Brooklyn, who had just been bullied by his father and was a little depressed, could not help but laugh. Poplar Fruit chased the football back with a red face. He did not dare to show his poor football skills again. After a few twists, he kicked the football back to Beckham. "David, can you show me your free kick?" Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. "I have admired your free kick for a long time." Beckham was definitely one of the best free kick players on the planet. His former full moon scimitar could be said to be the most beautiful scenery on the field. It was also an unforgettable memory for Poplar Fruit's generation. "No problem." Beckham laughed. He had already completed a small warm-up. He gently juggled the football, and then stepped on the ground. He looked at a big tree 20 meters away from him. "Is it difficult to kick leather shoes? Does it affect the feel of your feet?" Poplar Fruit asked Brooklyn in a low voice. However, before Brooklyn could answer, Beckham answered Poplar Fruit's worries with practical actions. Beckham kicked out, and only a muffled sound was heard. It drew a beautiful arc and hit the big tree from a distance. "Wow!" Poplar Fruit clapped in shock and excitement. He really had not aged. Although Beckham had retired, his kung fu had not fallen behind. In particular, his free kick skills had reached the realm of perfection. Perhaps many current Premier League stars would have to concede defeat to him. It was a pity that such an amazing performance was only for Poplar Fruit, and the rest to amuse themselves. If someone filmed it and put it on the internet, it would probably cause many fans to scream. Chapter 1061. Later, Beckham and Poplar Fruit played three-man football. The so-called three-man football was a game of three people. Beckham played alone against Poplar Fruit and Brooklyn. Although it was 1 against 2, Beckham was able to play without being at a disadvantage. It couldn't be helped. Brooklyn was flashy and Yang's footwork wasn't good. If the kick wasn't crooked, it would be kicked away. The two didn't cooperate at all. Often, the ball would be stolen by Beckham in the middle. But they still had a lot of fun. Poplar Fruit found a little bit of the feeling of playing football, and he used his better physical fitness to beat Beckham and get back a little bit of face. "Haha, I haven't played so much in a long time." Beckham laughed, his hands on his knees, and he gasped for breath. They played for more than an hour. Although they did not run much, the confrontation was fierce, especially Poplar Fruit's signature way of crushing with his body. Beckham, who had been out of professional training for a long time, was so tired that he was sweating like rain. Brooklyn was even worse. He had already taken off his jacket and was lying next to him, panting. Poplar Fruit was better. He was not too uncomfortable, and he did not sweat too much. Most of the sweat on his clothes came from Beckham. Back in the warm room, Beckham took off his shirt, pointed at Poplar Fruit, and joked, "Boy, you play football well. Come, let's exchange jerseys." Poplar Fruit smiled, took off his sweaty long-sleeved shirt, and exchanged jerseys with Beckham. "Oh, look at your body." Beckham took the shirt and exclaimed, "Don't tell me you quit being a model and became a professional bodybuilder?" Although he was joking, Beckham's exclamation was not a joke at all. Brooklyn, who came in later, also said enviously, "Leon, if I could have a body like yours, is there anything in the world that I can't do?" Not to mention his height, there was not a trace of fat on his naked upper body. His 8-pack abs and firm chest muscles. It was as if he had gone through bodybuilding. His standard was amazing. It wasn't that Beckham hadn't seen Young's 8-pack abs before. It was just that during last year's show, Beckham thought that Young's figure had been beautified by special training and makeup. But now that Beckham had experienced it, he knew that Poplar Fruit's muscles were not just for show. Those muscles that looked like they had explosive power were so strong that it made one's hair stand on end. He couldn't even move them. What was even more strange was that once Poplar Fruit put on his clothes, his muscles would be covered up. Poplar Fruit immediately turned into a refined scholar. This was too deceptive. "Come on, let's go take a shower and change clothes," Poplar Fruit said with a smile, feeling a little creeped out by these two pure straight men. "Dad, take a picture and post it on Twitter," Brooklyn reminded him. Selfie and Twitter maniac Beckham just remembered this. He took out his phone and pulled Poplar Fruit over with a smile. Brooklyn also came over and made a cool pose. Poplar Fruit was a little reserved. Beckham took a picture and didn't like it very much, so he stopped and taught Poplar Fruit how to pose. Okay, he really likes to play. Poplar Fruit shook his head helplessly. He also went all out and acted cool with Beckham and the others. Poplar Fruit, who had been a model, of course knew how to cater to the camera. He immediately let Beckham take a picture that he was satisfied with. "Mine too. I want to take a picture with Leon alone." Brooklyn pushed his dad away and posed with Poplar Fruit himself. "Look down. Leon, let's take a picture like this." Brooklyn took out a selfie stick and pointed the phone from bottom to top. Then Poplar Fruit and Brooklyn both posed like Hercules, showing off their muscles. "Perfect." Brooklyn laughed. "I'm going to post it on Instagram. Now my dad only knows how to use Twitter. He doesn't know that Instagram is the holy land for selfies." "What did you say?" Beckham, who had just finished tweeting, came over and asked. Nothing. Brooklyn didn't want his father to run to INS and cause him to lose his confidence and run away. Poplar Fruit could finally put on his shirt. The jersey exchange was just a joke. As soon as he put it on, the hot girl came over and saw Beckham and Brooklyn, who were still topless and playing with their phones. She said angrily, "Do you want to catch a cold?" She took the shirt and forced Brooklyn to put it on. She waved her hand to fan the air and said, "The smell of sweat is terrible. You guys should go take a shower. You're going to watch a movie with the kids later." "What movie?" Poplar Fruit asked with interest. The hot girl said, "Frozen. It just premiered in Bali yesterday. The kids said they wanted to watch it, so I asked my assistant to buy tickets." Poplar Fruit had heard of Frozen, a movie that was already very popular in the United States. It became the box office champion in the second week. Poplar Fruit planned to take Kiki to watch it when it was released in China. However, there was no sign of it being released in China yet. As for Kiki, she definitely didn't know what kind of movie Frozen was. However, when the kids heard that they were going to watch a movie, they would definitely cheer excitedly and play with their followers. That was the effect of my daughter's kids hanging out together. "What's there to watch? I don't want to watch cartoons," Brooklyn mumbled unhappily. He always felt that he was an adult and shouldn't hang out with kids. "Since you're out to play, why don't you follow your family?" the hot girl asked. Brooklyn shook his head and said, "No, I want to play billiards with Leon." Poplar Fruit smiled and waved his hand. "Brooklyn, I'm sorry, but I still have to accompany my daughter tonight." You know, a strong man has to shoulder the responsibility of protecting his daughter. The hot girl's words were not as effective as Poplar Fruit's. Brooklyn, who had now become a Poplar Fruit fan, thought for a moment. He scratched his head coolly and said, "Okay, I'm going to protect you." Poplar Fruit, who went to take a shower and change his clothes, didn't know that after Beckham and Brooklyn posted his photo on Twitter and Instagram, it was immediately reposted and quoted by the media. "I played football with my good brother and beat him. Haha, this muscular man is so strong. Luckily, I still have my skills. I beat him and Brooklyn by myself." This was obviously posted by Beckham. After a game of football, he and Poplar Fruit became much closer. They went from friends to good brothers. As for Brooklyn, Poplar Fruit's little fan, he said, "I took a picture with Leon, my idol, the former genius model, and now the most handsome guy in the world. Yes, more handsome than that old guy." He didn't forget to criticize his own father. This crazy repost had nothing to do with poplar fruit. It was just a habit of a large number of Beckham's fans. However, poplar fruit didn't expect that because of his relationship with Beckham in Brooklyn, he would become popular. He was more popular than all his previous news. People soon discovered that the man who played football with Beckham was the model who was in the limelight last year. This year, he helped a guest win the Nobel Prize in Literature again. He was poplar fruit, who wasn't a celebrity in the entertainment industry. This news also spread to China and caused a lot of exclamations. However, poplar fruit's fans weren't very surprised. They knew that poplar fruit was staying in Bali through Weibo. Photos of Kiki and Xiaoqi, as well as poplar fruit and Beckham's friends, had been released as early as last year. He just has a good relationship with Beckham's family? What's so strange about that? Our long-legged oppa's charm is world-class. Chapter 1062. On the way to the cinema, poplar fruit looked at Beckham and his family curiously and asked, "David, don't you need to wear sunglasses and hats to disguise yourselves? Aren't you afraid of being surrounded by fans if you go out like this?" Beckham was a world-class football player, a celebrity. His popularity was not just for show. What's more, before he retired, he played for Bali Saint-Germain last year. The number of his fans in Bali would only increase. The hot girl explained, "It's okay. We'll go directly from the parking lot and watch the movie in the VIP room. Mr. Ardle helped us get first-class tickets, so we don't have to worry about being discovered." Moreover, the car they were sitting in was Ardle's family car. Who would have guessed that the famous Beckham was sitting in it? Kiki stayed in her father's arms for a while. She couldn't stay there anymore. She ran with Luo Danny and Xiaoqi in the long car. She ran to the back window, stood on the sofa, and looked out of the dark window. Luo Danny was a little better. He didn't know if it was because she was a big sister or because her English was too slow, but she never spoke much. However, Chi-Chi and Little Seven were especially lively as they chatted about the streets, pedestrians, and even the pug dogs of the noblewomen by the roadside. Kiki would only run to her father when she didn't know how to speak a word. But in the end, she was too lazy to run and just asked loudly. She was able to learn the language even faster through practical application. Kiki used to speak English with an American accent, but after a few days, her accent gradually became closer to Xiaoqi's. The hot girl was amazed and amazed. No one would care if Kiki and Xiaoqi were too playful and not ladylike at all. Yanghua and Beckham didn't mind. Girls who weren't even 3 years old. Wasn't it in their nature to be playful? Why should they be forced to follow the rules that restrain their nature? They entered the cinema. To be exact, they were in the VIP room on the second floor. Here, they could sit comfortably on the sofa and enjoy the drinks and snacks provided by the cinema. When I used to watch movies with Papa, there were so many people. Kiki told him about her past experiences and said, "Then, we watched the beautiful Ice Age. I've also watched Ice Age. I really like the mammoth uncle in it." Luo Danny agreed. "I really like him too. His name is Manny. Although he's fierce, he likes to help other animals," Kiki said. "But I haven't seen it," Little Seven said unhappily. "It's okay. We'll watch today's movie with you. It'll be very good too," Luo Danny said. Today's movie is called His Name is Frozen. Little Seven's mama mentioned it just now. Kiki said quickly, "Honey, the movie is about to start. Be good and watch the movie. Don't talk." The hot girl walked over and hugged the 3 little cuties sitting on the sofa at the front. Then she smiled and handed them cold and sweet drinks. With the classic Disney castle and fireworks animation, the movie finally started. My daughters 3, Little Seven sat in the middle and hugged the 2 little sisters' hands. They all began to watch the movie nervously. The opening was very good. No matter if it was the cute little reindeer, the strong man working on the ice lake singing the song, or the magnificent aurora. All of these scenes were so spectacular under the 3D movie technology. Even my daughters stupidly stretched out their hands to touch them. However, they touched nothing. The beginning of the movie was a game between Princess Elsa and her younger sister, Princess Anna. Although Princess Elsa's ice magic was very powerful, she showed her care and concern for her younger sister. This made my daughter hold each other's hands happily. However, the situation took a turn for the worse. Anna was too excited and didn't pay attention to her safety. Elsa also accidentally slipped and hit Anna with her magic. At first, everyone was worried for the cute little Anna. But luckily the gnome pendant saved her better than Grandpa. But soon, everyone's worry fell on Elsa. This kind princess had been feeling guilty for her mistake. In order to protect Elsa, the king and queen not only blocked the news, but also separated Elsa and Anna. Aisha locked herself in a room in the castle. Little Anna, who couldn't find her sister who loved her the most, sang a beautiful song day after day to call for her sister. However, she couldn't wait for her sister to appear. At this time, the tense plot attracted the attention of Poplar Fruit and the other men who were sitting at the side. They also stared at the screen and didn't have the mood to chat. Because Elsa grew up and closed herself off, her magic became stronger and stronger, and she became more and more out of control. However, suddenly, a shipwreck engulfed the king and queen, but they didn't see Elsa at the funeral. Anna was singing outside the door, and Aisha was sobbing in pain as she lost control of her frost magic behind the door. This scene moved the girls to tears. After all, they were still young. When they were sad, they would only look for their father. Poplar Fruit hurried to hug Kiki, Beckham carried Seven, and the hot girl comforted Luodani, who didn't have any family members with her but was older and more sensible. The plot of the movie continued. In the end, Kiki watched the whole movie in her father's arms. It included how Elsa froze the whole bay and went deep into the mountains. Then, she used magic to build a huge ice palace in the depths of the ice and snow. It also included how Elsa and Anna encountered Prince Hans's plot to seize power. It also included how Anna was saved because of Christopher's true love, and how Elsa broke Prince Hans's plot and regained her magic power because of Anna's true love. In fact, the whole movie wasn't all about the heart-wrenching plot. There were many scenes that made children and adults smile. For example, Olaf Snowbow was so cute that his head was separated from his body from time to time. Occasionally, he would have some strange thoughts. For example, he wasn't afraid of melting and dreamed of embracing the warm summer wind and the scorching sun. However, the tear-jerking scenes made Kiki cry too much, so she could only lie comfortably in her father's arms and watch the movie. When the movie ended and Poplar Fruit wanted to tell her about the true love and positive energy in the movie, Kiki left her father and ran to share her happiness with her friends. Kiki wants to be a big sister who protects her sister like Elsa. Kiki's idea was out of Poplar Fruit's expectations. Luodani, who was already the big sister, didn't show any weakness. She said, "No, I want to be Elsa. Kiki is Anna. Harper is Anna." Xiaoqi hugged Kiki's and Luodani's buttocks. She raised her head and said happily, "You are both Elsa. You have to protect Harper. Let's go, can't hold it back anymore." Kiki had only watched the movie once, but she could already hum the song slowly. With Poplar Fruit's hearing, he could tell that his daughter remembered the lyrics quite accurately. Under Chi-Chi's lead, Little Seven and Luodani also started singing. When they were in the car, they actually sang quite smoothly. Moreover, their voices were soft and very pleasant to listen to. For this, Beckham took 3 videos of my daughter and posted them on the internet. "I think Disney should pay us for advertising," Beckham said to Poplar Fruit with a smile. Chapter 1063. Kiki sang very well, but if she sang the same song every day with the same lyrics, even the patient Poplar Fruit would get tired of it. Listen to it, she's singing again. On the 5th day, after attending Aunt Jenny's press conference in Sweden, Poplar Fruit returned to the hotel and called Fong Beibei. He complained, "My ears are going to grow calluses." Yonggwa stretched out her hand and poked her phone into the room. Chi-Chi, who had washed herself clean, was tossing and turning on the comfortable big bed. She was even humming, "Let It Go" to amuse herself. "Who told you to secretly take Kiki to the movies?" Fong Beibei laughed. "I listened to this song online and it's really good. Later, when it's released in China, I want you to take me to see it." "Okay." Poplar Fruit laughed. "By the way, didn't you say that Dad wanted Beckham's autograph? Beckham sent it to me and signed it on a football. Dad will definitely like it. Don't keep calling me Dad." I haven't agreed to marry you yet. Feng Beibei said shyly. Hey, aren't you going to be mine sooner or later? Poplar Fruit laughed a little overbearingly. Is there still news about Beckham and me in China? Poplar Fruit asked curiously. From Feng Beibei, Poplar Fruit found out that because there were no Chinese winners this year, the news coverage of the Nobel Prize was much smaller. On the other hand, Poplar Fruit and Kiki had been in the limelight ever since they went abroad. First, everyone was talking about the relationship between Poplar Fruit and Beckham's family. They were also amazed by Poplar Fruit's low-key, but not to be underestimated. In detail, there were famous stars like Beckham who were friends with Poplar Fruit overseas, as well as the new head of Givenchy, although he was still the second in command, the co-founder of Blizzard, the great director Lien, and other celebrities from different industries who were in contact with Poplar Fruit. In China, there were several hosts led by teacher He on Mango TV, and there were also rumors that Poplar Fruit had a controlling stake in Wanhetiani. The web dramas and micromovies produced by this new media company were already widely known on the internet, and some of its best directors and actors were inextricably linked to Poplar Fruit. Among them was Chen Jian, the rising martial arts star of the new generation in China. With the support of Wanhetiani, he had already starred in 2 popular period dramas. It was also said that he had even gotten the opportunity to play a supporting role in a road movie. When Chen Jian was interviewed by the media, he always expressed his gratitude to Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit is my benefactor. When I was at my most confused and was about to go down the wrong path, it was Poplar Fruit who helped me. Poplar Fruit seemed to be drifting away from the entertainment industry, but his news and past deeds had always been the most talked about material in the entertainment news. However, Poplar Fruit's limelight in China was actually not as good as Kiki's. Over the years, Brooklyn and the Spice Girls were not as good as the media's love for Little Seven. Even Beckham's hidden attribute of being a daughter-con was often in the news. Some media speculated that the reason why Poplar Fruit could have such a good relationship with Beckham might have something to do with both of them being daughter-cons. Moreover, judging from their birthdays, Kiki and Little Seven were about the same. From Beckham's video, more people recognized Kiki, my daughter, who had a completely different style from Little Seven. Little Seven is cute, but Kiki is cute. Compared to Little Seven, who matured slightly slower, Kiki looks prettier. Although her little face still has some baby fat, you can see the outline of a great beauty between her eyebrows. Kiki has a fairy-like aura. When she sang that song, it really made me think that Princess Elsa in the cartoon had transmigrated. If someone told me that she could create a fairy tale world with a wave of her hand, I would believe it without hesitation. This was the comment of an American netizen who had watched the movie. The domestic netizens' public opinion did not focus on this aspect. Instead, they were discussing enthusiastically. The effect of genes is too amazing. Poplar Fruit's and Beckham's handsomeness have been inherited by their daughter. Little Seven can't tell now, but she will definitely be a great beauty when she grows up. After all, the Spice Girls' looks are right there. Kiki is already very beautiful when she's not even 3 years old. When she grows up, she will definitely be a beauty like Audrey Hepburn. Poplar Fruit's success and adventures were amazing. However, no matter how low-key he was, he had held many press conferences and accepted many interviews. Kiki rarely appeared in front of the media. Now, it seemed that she had the potential to become the media's new favorite. Don't forget that when Xie Mingxing and Zhang Mingxing's eldest son, Lucas, was born, the media had always paid attention to him. Even now that they were divorced, the media had to talk about Lucas and his other child every time they reported. As for the other celebrities' children, like Andy Lau's mysterious daughter, they were the subject of the media's eager attention. Compared to them, Poplar Fruit's fame was much smaller. Although Kiki had many fans on the internet, she was not mysterious. In the words of her fans, she was very down-to-earth. These fans had gathered for a long time. First, it was not because of gimmicks, and second, it was not because of her father's fame. In fact, Kiki's fanbase was even larger than Poplar Fruit's. They were completely attracted by Kiki's cuteness, sensibility, and versatility. Our Kiki is a genius who can sing, dance, speak foreign languages, do mathematics, and tell stories. She is polite, filial, obedient, and especially caring. A true fan went through Poplar Fruit's Weibo for more than 2 years and summed up Kiki's many good points. There were also enthusiastic netizens who made a video of Kiki's growth. Of course, the source material was Poplar Fruit's Weibo. From a chubby little girl back then, she had grown into a cute little girl who was like a little fairy today. People couldn't help but feel that time had passed quickly, and it also made people look forward to Kiki's future. A fan said very poetically, "I suddenly feel very lucky because we have witnessed the birth and germination of a flower fairy. In the future, when she grows strong, when she is in bud, and when her beauty blossoms, we will accompany her, care for her, and protect her." More and more people became Kiki's fans. Gradually, with the media adding fuel to the fire, Kiki had the momentum to become the nation's younger sister. However, from the comments under Poplar Fruit's Weibo, it could be seen that the fans recognized the title of nation's daughter more. Because of Kimi, I also want to have a son. Because of Kiki, I also want to have a daughter. It's so contradictory, what should I do? A netizen jokingly asked for help, which amused many netizens. Netizens said one after another, "Let's have twins. It's best if the daughter comes out first because our Kiki loves being the older sister the most." What do you mean by our Kiki? Kiki is Poplar Fruit's daughter, okay? Poor Poplar Fruit, his performance in Sweden has been ignored in China. Don't you see? Netizens said one after another, "Poplar Fruit, don't post about the award ceremony on Weibo. We want to see Kiki. Kiki is the star." Chapter 1064. In the blink of an eye, more than half a month had passed. Poplar Fruit had already returned to China. His outstanding performance at the Nobel Prize Award ceremony did not garner the attention of the domestic media. Instead, when they returned, they were chased by the media at the airport because of Kiki. Fortunately, after returning, Poplar Fruit, who was prepared, not only did he not accept any interviews, except for some official media outlets, to reduce his exposure, he also made Kiki go out less. He even sent her to her maternal grandparents' house to hide. This gradually weakened the media's enthusiasm to follow and report on them. Just as most people were focusing on Kiki, the domestic academic community, especially the linguistic community, was shocked by the new issue of the Translator Expert. This had never happened before. The last issue of the Translator Expert this year was actually taken up by the same thesis. It was still fine for the supplement issue. It went from the original dozens of pages to nearly 200 pages. Although it was a lot more than before, it was not something that had never happened before. But why would an authoritative journal use all its pages to publish a thesis? Could it be that the person who wrote this thesis was a respected academic master? At the very least, it would have to be that Sanskrit scholar, a national treasure master, Teacher Ji, to receive such treatment. But Teacher Ji had already passed away. In mainland China, there were no scholars who could be recognized as masters. The author of the thesis was Poplar Fruit. This translator was indeed famous, but had not been recognized by the academic community. No, he was still a student, right? How could he dominate the entire Translator Expert? Could it be that there had been some progress on the theory of variation that he had previously proposed? That was impossible. In the first half of this year, the theory of variation could be said to have been thoroughly studied by the research teams of Higashiyama University and Beijing International Studies University. The published thesis could be said to have covered the entire theory of variation and translation techniques. It was very popular among high-level translators. But that was already the limit, right? Even if there were more breakthroughs later on, it would not have changed so much and so quickly. Translator Expert also wouldn't go so far as to copy and publish a work that had already been published for half a year. When the scholars and professors who received the journal opened the thick issue of the Translator Expert with doubts, they saw the editor's note on the front page. The one who wrote the editor's note was Dean Chi Shan, who was also the deputy editor of Translator Genius. Please allow me, with excitement and many other indescribable feelings, to recommend to the readers of this journal a paper by the outstanding young scholar Poplar Fruit. We spent a month organizing all the reviewers, editors, and professors in the domestic language field to study and verify the theory. Only then did we decide to publish Poplar Fruit's paper in a supplement and special issue. Next, please read carefully, because you will see a brand new, epoch-making academic theory that will change the pattern of modern Chinese teaching and teaching Chinese as a foreign language. The entire editor's note was several hundred words long, but it did not hide the fact that Qiu Shan, or rather, the translator he represented, approved of Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit didn't fail to live up to the other party's recognition. After his theory was published, it caused an earthquake in the academic world. Countless experts and scholars came out to discuss and verify Poplar Fruit's thesis. Of course, other than time, there was also his age that prevented Poplar Fruit from being recognized. Many times because they heard Poplar Fruit's name, and because they knew from the media's previous reports on Poplar Fruit that Poplar Fruit was young, many experts and scholars were disdainful of his theory. They even began to criticize Poplar Fruit in public without understanding it properly. Poplar Fruit did not care about this because in his opinion, his theory was valuable, and it was priceless. Even if some people ridiculed it, there would be a day when it would blossom with the light it deserved. Of course, there were still some people who were rational and wise. They saw the excellence and innovation of Poplar Fruit's theory. Even the National Confucius Institute had gathered scholars to study the feasibility of Poplar Fruit's word-splitting method in teaching. They believed that they would get an answer in the near future. At the same time, Language_Learning, which was sponsored by Harvard University and Monterey University abroad, also published Poplar Fruit's thesis. However, Language_Learning was much smarter. They only published the abstract and the first 2 chapters of Poplar Fruit's thesis. The rest of the thesis was put on their academic website. Language_Learning's readership was much larger than the translators. Moreover, on a global scale, as long as one studied or paid attention to Chinese, they would read the full thesis through the links in the journal. After all, as long as it was an article published in this journal, there was not a single article that was worthless. If Language_Learning had not been published a week later than the translators, perhaps the foreign experts and professors would have discovered the value of this theory earlier than the domestic experts and professors. Even so, many foreign professors were still amazed by Poplar Fruit's youth and excellence. They finally understood why Professor Ritchie from Harvard praised Poplar Fruit so much and gave him such a high promise. It turned out that Ritchie already knew that Poplar Fruit was as bright as the sun. In fact, Harvard University really valued Poplar Fruit. When Poplar Fruit came back from Sweden, he was called to the office by Chen Zhongdai. With a straight face, Chen Zhongdai handed the offer letter from Harvard to Poplar Fruit, who was confused. It was a simple International Express delivery bag. Inside it was a letter from Higashiyama University to Poplar Fruit. In the letter, other than the acceptance letter from Harvard, there was also an invitation letter from Professor Ritchie from Harvard. The letter was very clear. It recognized Poplar Fruit's ability and invited him to study in the United States. Poplar Fruit read the letter in one glance. When he looked up, Poplar Fruit saw a pair of anxious eyes. When Chen Zhongdai saw Poplar Fruit looking up, he immediately looked away and looked at the decorations on his desk as if he did not care. Ahem, Professor, Harvard. Harvard wants to recruit me. Poplar Fruit looked surprised and excited. Chen Zhongdai was not happy. It's just Harvard. What's so great about it? Chen Zhongdai said sourly, with your level, it's the same no matter where you go to school. Who can teach you at Harvard? Don't always think that the moon in other countries is round. Hee, Professor. Why are you so anxious? I didn't say I wanted to go. Poplar Fruit smiled proudly. Don't worry. Don't worry about what? I'm not worried at all. Chen Zhongdai could not hide the joy on his face, but he still said stubbornly, I still feel sorry for you because you rejected Harvard's acceptance letter. Poplar Fruit did not want to provoke his professor. The old man's health was not good this year, and he often had minor illnesses and pains. Poplar Fruit smiled and comforted him. It's okay, Professor. I don't have anything to be sorry about. It's just Harvard, right? You said it yourself. With my level, I can be successful anywhere. In fact, Poplar Fruit's consideration was not as indifferent as he said. Harvard was the dream of many Chinese students. Poplar Fruit was one of them. He used to envy those who were accepted by foreign universities. However, his roots were in Guangzhou. His home was also in Guangzhou. Poplar Fruit would not abandon Kiki and Fang Beibei to go to a foreign city. Chapter 1065. If it were someone else, Chen Zongdai might not have been so nervous, but Poplar Fruit was different. He had a talent that was hard to come by in 100 years, and he also had a persistent academic character. Chen Zongdai really wanted to cultivate Poplar Fruit into a symbol of the School of Foreign Languages, and even Higashiyama University. And Yanghua did not let him down. Not only did she exceed his expectations every time, but she also created 2 excellent linguistic theories on her own. Currently, she was one of the most sought-after translators and linguists in the country, and even in the world. Although Poplar Fruit's choice was regrettable, it was not necessarily wrong. Harvard could only give Poplar Fruit the honor that Poplar Fruit no longer needed, nothing else. As Chen Zongdai said, even at Harvard University, there was no qualified and knowledgeable teacher to teach Poplar Fruit. With Poplar Fruit's talent, classroom education was simply a waste of resources. Only by self-study, Poplar Fruit could learn more and more knowledge faster. Staying at Higashiyama University not only gave him more freedom and a more relaxed academic environment, but also Chen Zongdai spared no effort to protect and help him. For example, Poplar Fruit had only been a graduate student for half a year, but he was already able to teach in class. This situation was very rare in domestic and even foreign universities. To a large extent, the resources of the School of Foreign Languages were tilted towards Poplar Fruit, not only in terms of political resources, but also in terms of academic resources. For example, Poplar Fruit would apply for several boxes of materials every month to read at home, and only after he finished reading them would he need to return them to the library. One must know that these materials were bought with real money from both domestic and foreign countries. But Poplar Fruit had the first reading right, and the right to order the purchase. It could be said that Chen Zongdai did not necessarily have such preferential treatment. Chen Zongdai once said that he planned to let Poplar Fruit graduate next summer. This was not just for show. Chen Zongdai had always kept this in mind. He constantly lobbied the principal and kept reporting to the Ministry of Education. Higashiyama University was under the Ministry of Education, but the progress was very slow because the most important element was missing. Now this element was here. This is also your invitation letter. Chen Zongdai saw Poplar Fruit casually throw Harvard's offer aside and laughed heartily. He took another envelope from the table and handed it to Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit thought it was from a famous university. He did not expect it to be written in Chinese. This is a Chinese education research team jointly organized by the Ministry of Education and the National Chinese Teaching as a Foreign Language Leading Group Office. It is personally led by the national leader in charge of education. All of them are language experts. Most of them are from famous universities like Beijing University and Shuemu University. Even your teacher, I am not qualified to join. Chen Zongdai looked at Poplar Fruit with some envy and some pride. He said, "You are the only one from our university who was invited." Even without Chen Zongdai's explanation, Poplar Fruit knew that he was invited because of his thesis. This research team was established not long ago. The purpose of the letter was to spread Chinese culture, promote Chinese, and Chinese education. Poplar Fruit believed that the main research goal was his word-splitting method. If his word-splitting method could be compiled into a comprehensive and standardized teaching material, Poplar Fruit believed that it would be a great help in promoting Chinese learning around the world. The purpose of Poplar Fruit's research was to reverse the situation where Chinese was the most difficult language to learn in the world. He estimated that the Ministry of Education and Hanban would discover the value of his theory. Otherwise, why would a national leader personally lead the research team? However, for Poplar Fruit, his attitude had to be compromised. He asked, "Teacher, if I join this, will I have to stay in Beijing?" Poplar Fruit was a little worried. "Why? Are you in love again?" Chen Zongdai glanced at Poplar Fruit and asked. Yanghua laughed and didn't feel embarrassed. She said, "Teacher, you know, my daughter is still young. Don't worry. If they want you to stay, I won't be willing to let you go." Chen Zongdai said sourly. "It's the information age now, and any research will be done through the internet. At most, you guys will gather in Beijing once a month for a meeting to report the research progress to the leaders. That's good. Yanghua sighed in relief. Put down your pride in this kind of research team. When you encounter something, you must learn to take responsibility instead of explaining. If you can give in, don't make a fuss. If you can listen, don't speak. If you can do something, don't just stand there, Chen Zongdai said worriedly. In short, be careful. The big picture is more important. Poplar Fruit nodded his head. Chen Zongdai smiled and said, You don't have to be so nervous. You'll know when you go in. They're all elders, and you're the only one who's young. When the time comes, you'll naturally know how to respect them and turn your diligence into action. No matter what the research team is like, it's a good thing for us that you're in. Chen Zongdai suddenly changed the topic and said with a smile, My report to the higher-ups was finally approved because of your invitation letter. When the next semester starts, you'll be promoted. The so-called promotion meant that Poplar Fruit's current position of assistant lecturer would be promoted, and Poplar Fruit would become a lecturer who received a salary from the university. With the title of lecturer, Poplar Fruit could continue to move up the ranks. Associate professor, professor. This was the path that every professor had to go through. However, Poplar Fruit was still shocked. He asked, That's not right, right? Professor, I haven't graduated yet. Although there were people who became lecturers and studied for their doctorates, it was very rare. At least in Higashiyama University, there had never been a case where a student became a lecturer from nothing. Moreover, he had to receive a salary and be evaluated for a title. It doesn't matter. You're a special case. We've already treated you as a university lecturer. How can we not give you a title? Our Higashiyama University is not a slave farm in a capitalist society. How can we let cows work and not feed cows? Chen Zongdai said domineeringly. Moreover, with Poplar Fruit's excellent teaching performance, Chen Zongdai was very confident that no one else in the university would object to Poplar Fruit's promotion. As for the university's leadership, it seemed that they wanted to cultivate Poplar Fruit as a pillar of the university. Chen Zongdai realized this, and when he was planning and budgeting for next year's new semester, he deliberately fought for more resources for the School of Foreign Languages. As a result, it was really approved. The School of Foreign Languages cultivated Poplar Fruit, but to a certain extent, didn't Poplar Fruit also help the growth of the School of Foreign Languages? Moreover, with Poplar Fruit as a living signboard, Chen Zongdai believed that the future of the School of Foreign Languages and Higashiyama University would definitely be better and better. Chapter 1066. It was the end of the semester again, but it was already January of 2014. Poplar Fruit's courses were successfully completed, and Li Yang's one semester of distance education was temporarily suspended, waiting for the students to finish their exams and have a holiday, then conduct a comprehensive review and acceptance. Poplar Fruit was very happy today, because the media storm had finally subsided, and Poplar Fruit could pick up his daughter and go home. Poplar Fruit and Fang Beibei missed Kiki so much that they almost went crazy. During this period, in order not to let the paparazzi find Kiki's trace, Poplar Fruit did not go to see Kiki for more than half a month, although Fang Beibei's home was not far away. Kiki, ouch ouch, you're hugging me too hard. Although there were video calls every day, and even Kiki often called her father, the little girl still missed her father too much. As soon as she saw her father, she rushed up with red eyes. After being picked up by her father, she tightly hugged Poplar Fruit's neck and pouted her small mouth with an aggrieved look. Kiki, Daddy's little princess, don't cry. Daddy also misses you very much. Poplar Fruit gently wiped Kiki's tears, and bean-sized golden teardrops kept falling down. Kiki doesn't want to leave Papa. Papa, don't leave Kiki, okay? Kiki sobbed. She hugged her father's neck, and her small face gently rubbed against her father's big hand. She liked to stay in her father's big hand, which was warm and safe. No, I won't in the future. Poplar Fruit smiled slightly. He also didn't want to send Kiki away from his side. Although she was also his family, Poplar Fruit didn't have a good time in the past half-month when he came back every day and saw that the family was less active and less weight that would jump on him at any time and place. At this time, Fong Beibei ran to comfort her parents. Mr. and Mrs. Fong were actually a little hurt. Previously, Kiki was actually very happy at home. She was like the moon, surrounded by stars and clouds. The elders would let her do whatever she wanted. But now, it seemed that her father was the one who was closer to her. Poplar Fruit saw it. He helped Kiki, who was gradually calming down, dry her tears and said, "Kiki, you haven't said goodbye to your grandparents yet. Grandpa and Grandma have taken care of you for so long. Shouldn't you thank them?" Kiki nodded sensibly, her long eyelashes still wet with tears. She got down from her father's body and walked unsteadily towards her parents. She took her mother's hand and said in a sobbing voice, "Grandpa, Grandma, Kiki wants to go home." Mother Fong lovingly hugged the little girl in her arms. She brushed away her wet bangs and said, "Okay, when you get home, you must listen to your father and cover yourself with a blanket when you sleep. If there's anything you want to eat, give me a call and I'll send it over right away." Kiki nodded vigorously. She hugged her mother's neck and said sweetly, "Grandma, you're the best." When they left, Poplar Fruit carried Kiki's small luggage and walked in front of Kiki. He started the car first. Poplar Fruit heard Mother Fong and Fong Beibei's muttering from the car window. "Beibei, when can you have a child? Your father and I are looking forward to it." Mother Fong said. Fong Beibei blushed. She pulled her mother's hand and said, "Mom, why are you bringing this up again? Didn't we talk about it before? Poplar Fruit and I don't plan to have children before we graduate from university. Don't drag Poplar Fruit into this." Poplar Fruit said that it's up to you. Mother Fong stared at her impolitely. "You're almost 21 now. People can get married and have children at 20. Why are you still dragging it out? Aren't I studying now?" Fong Beibei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Besides, if I go to class with a big belly, won't I be laughed at by Shan Shan and the others? Then how long are you going to drag it out?" Mother Fong asked. "Didn't you say that you'll graduate from university?" Fong Beibei was helpless. She said, "There's less than 2 years left. Mom, just wait patiently." "Don't think that I don't know your little trick." Mother Fong snorted and said, "You think I don't know the trick of dragging it out? After you graduate from university, you'll go on to graduate. After that, you want to get a doctorate. You and your father are the same. Do you think I don't know? If it wasn't for me, he would probably..." Ahem. Father Fong coughed dryly, interrupting Mother Fong. "You should have a child while you're still young. You can still be beautiful in the future." Mother Fong advised. "Mom, we don't have time for that." Fong Beibei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Don't worry, I won't lie to you. After I graduate from university, I'll discuss marriage with Poplar Fruit. We'll talk about children later. If you don't have time, you can squeeze it out. No, I can leave the business here to someone else. Then, I'll go to your place and help you take care of the children. Isn't that great? You won't have to worry and you can save time to study. When you come back, you'll have food to eat." Father Fong nodded at the side. They really wanted a grandchild. Looking at the parents of other families who had already embraced their children and enjoyed the joy of family life, and then thinking about the joy that Chi-Chi had brought to their home for the past half a month, Father and Mother Fong really couldn't wait for another second. On this point, Poplar Fruit's parents weren't in a hurry. The main reason was that they already had young Linjia at home, which made them unhappy. How could they have the time and energy to urge Poplar Fruit? Fong Beibei eventually ran away. Poplar Fruit couldn't stand it anymore. He got out of the car and repeatedly promised his parents that he would take the time to consider this issue. Only then did Father and Mother Fong reluctantly let them go. On this issue, Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei were on the same side. Although Kiki had always wanted a younger brother or sister, the two of them felt that it wasn't time yet. Apart from work and study, Fong Beibei was still too young. She was only 20 years old. She really didn't want to have her own baby so early, much earlier than her friends of the same age. When they got home, Goldie waited at the door. Its ears were very sensitive, and it had heard Kiki's voice early on. The moment Kiki entered the door, it excitedly circled around Kiki, sniffing the scent of Kiki whom it hadn't seen for half a month. It was as if it was afraid that it would forget about her. Goldie, Goldie! Kiki shouted happily. She hugged Goldie, who was bigger than her, and clung to its body. Did you miss me? Tell me, did you miss Kiki? Woof woof. Goldie barked. How could it not miss you? It's just that, young mistress, are you greedy again? Why did you become fat? Fong Beibei lifted her shoes and patted Kiki's little butt in the air. She smiled and said, both of you go in quickly. The door is blocked. Chapter 1067. In fact, the first season of Where Are We Going, Dad? Had ended last week. But Kiki hadn't watched it yet. In fact, there were several episodes that Kiki couldn't bear to watch. When she was on the phone with her father before, the little girl said that she must wait for her father to take her home, and then watch it together. Poplar Fruit had always kept this promise and also told his fans on Weibo, don't give me any spoilers. I want to watch it with Kiki. Therefore, after returning home, they didn't go anywhere at night. After dinner, they took a shower and began to watch the show. Although it had been broadcast long ago, they could still watch the previous shows on TV as if they were going back in time. For more than half a month, they didn't watch the last 3 episodes. Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei accompanied Kiki, and watched it for 3 days in a row. They watched the joy of other fathers and children, and also felt the warmth and happiness of their own family. However, the first season of Where Are We Going, Dad? Was finally finished. Just like many beautiful things in the world, they wouldn't exist forever. After leaving a beautiful memory for people, they quietly withdrew from the stage of their lives. Sob, sob, I'm almost done. Chi-Chi looked at the tears of those stargazers on the screen, and curled up in her father's arms. She still couldn't believe it. She grabbed her father's hand and asked, Papa, where is Papa going? You can still cook, right? Kiki still wants to watch it, There will be more in the future. Poplar Fruit smiled and comforted Kiki. Don't worry, the first season is over. There will be the second and third seasons. Poplar Fruit didn't lie to Kiki, but he believed that such an excellent show that could almost be said to be popular among the people. There was no reason for it to be cancelled after only 1 season. Moreover, some rumors on the internet also gave him a lot of confidence. People had begun to choose the guests for the second season. Netizens came up with many different versions. Celebrities with children of the right age such as Xie Tingfeng, Zhang Jilin, and Yisun all appeared. Someone even included Li Zikai, the son of the richest man in the country, Li Jiaqing. In the first season, there was a celebrity athlete like Tian Liang. Therefore, some netizens were gossiping about whether Yao Ming and his daughter had been invited. This wasn't impossible. If Mango TV was really able to invite Yao Ming, who had kept his daughter hidden from the media, it would really cause a sensation in the country. There was also Poplar Fruit. No, it should be said that Kiki's fans weakly suggested that they should also ask the production team to consider Poplar Fruit. Wasn't Kiki from the Poplar Fruit family also a national cutie? However, this voice was too weak. Even they themselves felt that there was no hope. This was because Poplar Fruit had never appeared on any shows in the past year. Everyone seemed to have gotten used to Poplar Fruit's position as a scholar. Of course, there were also netizens who said that Poplar Fruit used to be a model, and a very popular one at that. If a reason had to be given, he could also replace Zhang Liang and join the second season of Where Are We Going, Daddy? However, this reason was too far-fetched. Poplar Fruit himself had said that he wasn't a professional. At most, he was just playing around. No matter what, Kiki's fans still had a glimmer of hope that Poplar Fruit would be chosen by Mango TV. There were even fans who left comments on Poplar Fruit's Weibo, angry and hateful that he didn't fight for it. Of course, for now, most of the audience was still reluctant to part with the guests from the first season, and hoped that the production team would not change the guests in the next season. The original Korean show did not change many of the original guests. Kiki was the same. She held Poplar Fruit's hand and asked expectantly, Daddy, really? Then, will Kiki be able to see Brother Kimmy this weekend again? It seemed that Kiki had misunderstood. Poplar Fruit stroked her hair and comforted her. There won't be this weekend. The second season may have to wait for a few more months. It's okay. Where can you watch without Daddy? Kiki still has Daddy here, right? Hee, when spring comes, Daddy will take you on a trip, okay? Part of the reason for the spring outing was that Fong Beibei's birthday was also in early March. When they celebrated Fong Beibei's birthday last year, they traveled in Macau and left a wonderful memory. Okay. Chi-Chi immediately became happy and said with a face full of expectation. Chi-Chi wants to see a big sea of flowers, beautiful birds, and beautiful, beautiful lakes. Who taught you to say these things? Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. No one taught me. Kiki learned it herself. Fong Beibei said with a smile. She reached out and held Poplar Fruit's hand and said, Didn't Sister and Lon come over with Brother Mosquito yesterday? After listening to Fong Beibei, Poplar Fruit knew that Chen Anlin and the others had come over to have a gathering yesterday because of Kiki's return. Before Poplar Fruit went to school and returned home, Fong Beibei dug out the photos that Poplar Fruit had taken before and asked Chen Anlin to tell the story of how she and Song Jiwen had just met. As they talked, Song Jiwen became the protagonist. He stood in the middle of the living room and gestured at the photos projected on the large screen TV, introducing all kinds of interesting things about him and Poplar Fruit's car trip the summer before last. I think the most beautiful place I've seen along the way is Kaiyun Province, Song Jiwen said with joy. Because Sister and Lon met you in Kaiyun Province at that time? Fong Beibei covered her mouth and laughed. Of course not. At that time, his eyes were only looking at other girls. I dressed conservatively and wore sportswear from head to toe. She wore revealing and sexy clothes. Chen Anlin looked at Song Jiwen with some disdain and said, That's the most beautiful scenery in his eyes. How is that possible? Song Jiwen quibbled. In my eyes, there's only beautiful scenery. Kaiyun Zenan. Look. Song Jiwen found the photos from Kaiyun Province and showed them. The Dianchi Lake in front is fast forward. Look here, Lijiang Lugu Lake. How beautiful is this sea of flowers? It's leaning against the lake. He put on a pious expression. The most beautiful thing is not the people, but this beautiful sea of flowers. The bird's wings streaked across the sky, facing the sparkling lake. This is our hometown. Go to hell. Song Jiwen was hit by a pillow. Chen Anlin shouted crazily. It was a good photo, why did you make it so disgusting? Thus, there was the scene that Kiki was looking forward to. Chi-Chi blinked her big eyes and said, Yes, there's also that crane ropeway. We can fly over in the sky, whoosh whoosh. She still remembered the joy of riding the ropeway at that time. Poplar Fruit rubbed his chin and thought. He discussed with Fong Beibei and said, Why don't we go there for our spring outing? We can also call Mosquito and Enlon along. I'll definitely go to Guishan Province after the Spring Festival because the children are about to start school. After we're done with the matters in Guishan Province, you Kiki Mosquito, and the others will meet me in Kaiyun Province. Okay. Fong Beibei smiled and said, Brother Mosquito and the others will definitely be very happy because this can be considered their journey of love again. Chapter 1068. In 2013, Poplar Fruit made a lot of money. It was definitely more than 100 million. After all, the new translation publishing house had a total annual profit of more than 2 billion yuan. Poplar Fruit's dividends were more than 100 million yuan, almost 200 million yuan. Of course, this was also built on the foundation of Yanggua's inhuman talent in languages and her bee-like diligence. Compared to Poplar Fruit, the other translators in the new translation publishing house were much poorer. But they were definitely not bad. That was because translators who signed a contract with the new translation publishing house and published works earned at least 100,000 yuan a month in the past year. The reason why they did not use a year as a unit was that many translators had published books for less than a year. There was still a difference between them. But this income was far more than what they used to earn as small translators. Moreover, it seemed that the future was bright. Although it was not comparable to Poplar Fruit, the translator whose income was second only to Poplar Fruit's had an average income of 350,000 yuan a month in the past year. Although he had just published his third book, he had saved enough money to buy a house in Yangcheng. This translator ranked second on the new translation publishing house, became the target of the translators who joined the new translation publishing house. However, Zheng Yujie told them at the year-end party, "This is just the beginning. As long as you are good enough, your income will only increase. Our market is too big. I believe that by next year, we will see translators with a monthly income of more than 1 million yuan, or even 10 million yuan." Zheng Yujie was ambitious. She wanted to make the new translation publishing house an international brand. She also wanted to make online literature into a new brand of Chinese culture. From the looks of it, Zheng Yujie's idea was not impossible, because Chinese fantasy literature was gradually becoming popular internationally. As long as they did not give up halfway, this wave would become more and more intense. Just like Bruce Lee, Chinese online literature would become the subject of fascination all over the world. In the past year, Poplar Fruit's academic and translation achievements had attracted the attention of the world. In fact, he had done a lot of other things. Among them, the most important was remote teaching. Remote teaching occupied a very important position in Poplar Fruit's mind. If translation was his hobby and source of income, and teaching at school was his job and the channel to pass on his knowledge, then teaching remotely had nothing to do with Poplar Fruit. It could be said that even if Poplar Fruit didn't do this remote teaching, no one in the world was qualified to criticize Poplar Fruit. He wouldn't lose his job or lose the meaning of life because of this. However, Poplar Fruit still persisted in doing this long-distance teaching. If he did a good job, no one would cheer for him. If he did a bad job, he would become a sinner. During the day, other than the necessary classes, he spent 60% of his energy on the multidimensional society. For the sake of this society and teaching, not only did Poplar Fruit continue to donate money, he also forced himself to learn management knowledge that he didn't like. This was so that he could better manage the many remote teaching volunteers scattered across different schools. Some people had once questioned whether Poplar Fruit was greedy for power and was unwilling to trust others. In fact, Poplar Fruit had also tried to give up the position of chairman. However, the volunteer organization had only been established for less than a year, and there was no suitable successor. Furthermore, the representatives of the various schools had expressed that they wanted Poplar Fruit to stay. The final outcome of the discussion was that Poplar Fruit would continue to manage the headquarters and coordinate the resource allocation and volunteer management of the various schools until all the societies had matured. Then Poplar Fruit would choose a suitable successor from all the schools. After that, Poplar Fruit would step back and continue to provide help and spiritual support as the honorary chairman. There were many rumors on the internet. Some people said that Poplar Fruit was doing this for Fang Beibei, while others said that Poplar Fruit was doing this for fame and fortune. It could be said that Poplar Fruit's original intention of doing this remote teaching was to win Fang Beibei's favor. This was more or less true. However, now that Fang Beibei was his girlfriend, and the two of them were going to get married, if Poplar Fruit was still doing it for Fang Beibei, was it necessary to continue working so hard? Speaking of fame and fortune, Poplar Fruit didn't think that doing public welfare would bring him any fame and fortune. Just look at the Red Cross. How badly were they being scolded by the people? When doing public welfare, it was fine if they did it well, but if they didn't do it well, they would really be scolded. If Poplar Fruit was really chasing fame and fortune, then he might as well frequently appear on TV, or be a model at various fashion weeks. With his ability, he would have been a star long ago. Why would he do public welfare? In fact, what really made Poplar Fruit persevere was the hugs given to Poplar Fruit by the children from Xiong Village who were admitted to the county's key high school last year. It was the children's articles compiled by the volunteers. From the articles, it could be seen that the children's dreams had changed. My dream is to be a scientist and invent a new car that can drive to the mountains. Then my grandparents can go down the mountain to buy new clothes. I want to be a doctor in the future and go back to the mountains to be a doctor because there are no doctors in the mountains. Otherwise, my mother wouldn't have died. I have to study hard and earn money in the future. Earn a lot of money. In this way, I can let my brother and my sister live in the city. I heard that there's hot water in the city without burning firewood. Poplar Fruit felt that he couldn't realize everyone's dream, nor could he change the fate of the thousands of children in the mountains. However, he wanted to let these children have the key to realize their dreams and change the future through his own efforts, and the efforts of more ambitious people. It was better to teach a man to fish than to give him a fish. Poplar Fruit was the same. He wasn't the messenger of light and couldn't bring light to the children. However, he could point out a path for the children to walk on their own and walk out of the light. Therefore, Poplar Fruit continued to invest more money in the fund for remote teaching. He also appealed to the major universities in Guangdong province for more people to join the volunteer team. This winter vacation, there wouldn't be more opportunities for children in the mountains to get remote education for the time being. This was because other cities knew about it, but they were still watching. Poplar Fruit also hoped to be able to fight steadily and let the remote teaching volunteer organization teach the poor students in Liang City first so that the system and teaching model could be more perfect. Then they would seek to expand the scale. However, the volunteer visit program for this winter vacation would still be held as usual. This time, Poplar Fruit, together with the organizations of various schools, selected a team of up to 120 people from the volunteer teachers of the previous semester. After the Spring Festival, this year's Spring Festival came particularly early. They would go to Liang City and enter the primary schools in the mountains in batches. On the one hand, they would bring the volunteers Spring Festival gifts, which were already made at the end of the semester, and blessings. On the other hand, they would also let the children communicate with the volunteers face-to-face and hold a happy opening ceremony. Of course, all the expenses would be provided by the Charity Foundation for Remote Teaching. Chapter 1069. This year's Chinese New Year came early. Because Yanggua didn't go home to accompany her parents last year, she finished her work in Yangcheng and brought Chi-Chi home early. Just like last year, Fang Beibei went home first. After the second day of Spring Festival, Poplar Fruit went to Yangcheng to pick her up. Speaking of which, Yanggua had bought a new car for Fang Beibei, who already had a driver's license before the new year. Originally, he wanted to buy her a BMW Mini. The standard was more than 400,000 yuan. But Fang Beibei thought it was too expensive. Then she and Chi-Chi both took a fancy to the Volkswagen Beetle. This was a classic car model that couldn't be more classic. With its round shape and various round dashboards inside, it captured the hearts of the two girls. Although the Beetle wasn't as luxurious as a BMW, it wasn't cheap either. Poplar Fruit felt that since the Beetle was made in Germany, it was at least safe. So he didn't have any objections. Of course, when they bought the car, Poplar Fruit secretly told Lao Gua, the owner of the Land Rover in the past, to buy Fang Beibei the best version of the Beetle. As for Fang Beibei not liking the flame-like red, Poplar Fruit didn't find it strange. Although they bought a new car for Fang Beibei, Poplar Fruit still drove Fang Beibei back to school and back home as usual. Her car was driven in the city at most. Fang Beibei couldn't outrun it, so Poplar Fruit was worried. Brother Jia. Ha ha ha. When they got home, Kiki was like a wild cat. Not only did she play, but she also held on to Yang Lingjie as if Yang Lingjie would give her candy. In fact, Yang Lingjie was annoyed. Now that he was in primary school, he felt like a little adult. Whenever he faced Kiki, he would put his hands behind his back and pretended to be reserved. As a matter of fact, Kiki, who had just chased the poultry in the yard, ran back to the lobby on the first floor. She stepped on the chair and climbed onto Yang Lingjie's back. Then, she hugged Yang Lingjie's neck and kissed his face. Stop fooling around. Yang Lingjie shook his head in annoyance, but because she was his sister, he couldn't bully her too much. Otherwise, his grandmother would beat him to death with a broom. Kiki, can't you see that I'm doing my homework? Why are you doing homework during the holidays? Kiki blinked her big eyes and asked curiously. Because this is called winter vacation homework. It's homework for the holidays. Yang Lingjie raised his head, as if he felt that he was more impressive than Kiki, because he had homework to do. Then why doesn't Kiki's papa do homework? Kiki scratched her head and asked. Papa is also on holiday. Yang Lingjie was a little confused. He stammered. I don't know, maybe uncle is an adult? Yes, adults don't do homework. Why don't adults do homework? Kiki asked innocently. At this moment, Yang Lingjie's heart almost collapsed. He knew that this cousin of his had 100,000 whys, but when she really annoyed him, he realized how terrible it was. Okay, Kiki, come here, don't disturb brother Jia doing his homework. If your brother Jia can't finish his homework, the teacher will spank him after the spring festival. Poplar Fruit smiled and came to young Linjia's rescue. No, Kiki wants to see brother Jia do his homework. Kiki shook her head, hugged young Linjia and refused to move. She didn't see young Linjia looking at Poplar Fruit with a pitiful look for help. Poplar Fruit thought for a moment, moved a chair for Kiki and let her sit aside, and said, Kiki, you sit aside and watch. Brother Jia can only play with you after he finishes his homework, so don't talk and disturb brother Jia, okay? Kiki half leaned on the table, swung her little head with 2 ponytails, and smiled like a crescent moon. She happily replied, okay. Kiki really didn't say anything. Young Linjia secretly glanced at Kiki and found that she was looking at his book, so he breathed a sigh of relief and continued to do his homework. However, young Linjia's learning talent was not good. He bit the end of his pen and didn't move for a long time. Kiki looked at him and wanted to say something, but stopped. The two of them were silent like this for a long time. Finally, Kiki couldn't take it anymore. She held her cheeks, squeezed her face round, and asked in a muffled voice, Brother Jia, why aren't you doing it? What? Kiki's voice wasn't loud, maybe because she was worried that her father would hear. Even young Linjia couldn't hear it clearly. Kiki repeated it again, and this time young Linjia understood. His little face turned red, as if he was being looked down upon. He pouted and said unhappily, What do you mean I'm not doing it? I'm doing it. It's just a math problem. Kiki, do you know what math is? It's very difficult, I need time to think. Is that so? Kiki suddenly understood and nodded. She laid down again and rested her chin on her arm, her big bright eyes staring at the book in front of young Linjia. Young Linjia was pained by Kiki's gaze, but Kiki was very quiet and didn't disturb him, so he couldn't chase her away. Just like this, after struggling for a long time, he finally wrote down the answer to the first question. Chi-Chi abruptly straightened her body and gave young Linjia a fright. The pencil drew a horizontal line on the notebook. Kiki blinked her eyes in confusion. She stretched out her small white finger and pointed at young Linjia's winter vacation exercise book. She asked, Brother Jia, this doesn't seem right. 6 plus 4 doesn't equal 7, it should be 10. Young Linjia himself couldn't judge the answer that Kiki said, so he asked in confusion, why? Because 6 plus 4 equals 10. Kiki answered very seriously. These basic calculations were almost all based on intuition, and if Chi-Chi was asked why, the little fellow really couldn't say it. Then you must be wrong. Young Linjia shook his head and said solemnly, I'm 5 years older than you. I'm the big brother, and you didn't go to school and didn't learn math. What I did is right. He was quite confident. Who said I didn't learn math? After being looked down upon, Kiki was unhappy. She pouted and ran outside to the courtyard. Young Linjia thought that he could finally have some peace and quiet. In the end, Kiki quickly came in with a phone. She called Feng Beibei. Of course, she wasn't complaining. Kiki was just asking Ma, who was the best at math in her heart. Holding the phone in her hand, Kiki tiptoed and pushed the phone in front of young Linjia. She said, Brother Jia, you're wrong. My Ma said that 6 plus 4 equals 10, not 7. In the end, Feng Beibei had the authority. Young Linjia's confidence suddenly disappeared. Moreover, in front of Feng Beibei, he felt that he had lost face. Feng Beibei was already laughing on the other end of the phone. She comforted the depressed young Linjia, and then patiently told him the process of the calculation and some tips. Xiao Jia, don't be discouraged. Wait for sister to come over. You'll know in a few days. Chapter 1070. In Yanggua's hometown, there was a change of parents. This wasn't something new in Yanggua's hometown. After Poplar Fruit came back from Liang City last summer, he talked to his sister, Yang Ping. Yang Ping told him that the new county party secretary was also surnamed Yang. His name was Yang Rongguan, and he was a leader from the city. This time, when he came back and chatted with his family for dinner, Poplar Fruit asked Secretary Yang again, He was mainly concerned about the family's business. After all, when Chen Longjiang was here, he took care of the Yang family's business. Now that Chen Longjiang had left Guangdong province for a year, he did not know if there were any changes. The good influence is indeed less, but I don't see Yang Rongguan have any opinions about us. Yang Ping said, anyway, the business will continue and we can make a lot of money. It's normal for the growth rate to slow down. Yang Chongguan said, over the past year, I have often brought gifts to visit the leaders in the county. I also want to visit Secretary Yang, hoping to maintain the previous relationship. If it was last year, everyone would be very happy for us to visit. But at the end of the year, and in the past few months, the country has been strict. No one dares to casually reach out. So, we have been rejected several times. Yang Chongguan said. It shouldn't be that their impression of us has changed. I asked a few of my good business partners, and found that the situation is similar. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, it's okay. The country's action is a good thing for us businessmen. It reduces the burden of giving gifts, and we don't have to do some illegal bribery all day long. Our family's business can compete with others openly. What are you afraid of? If we compete openly, we are not afraid. I'm afraid that if we compete openly, others will be unfair to us. Yang Ping patted her scholarly brother's head and said angrily, forget it. You don't have to worry about the family's business. We will take care of ourselves. Poplar Fruit smiled and did not care. He really didn't like to participate in these business operations, so he didn't ask about the family business. Until now, he didn't know how big Yang Ping's family business was. But to be honest, in terms of the construction of our hometown, which one do you think is better, Yang Rong or our former Secretary Chen? Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. Secretary Chen, please feel better. Yang Chongguan said without hesitation. Yang Ping nodded in agreement. Secretary Chen sincerely wants to do good things for the people. Look at how much has changed in our county since he came here. Not only has everyone's income increased, but so has everyone's quality of life. Yang Tai, who was beside him, also added a few words. He was usually a man of few words. He would only say a few words if it was a topic that interested him. In his eyes, the best thing that Chen Longjiang had done was to renovate old and dilapidated houses. Not to mention Poplar Fruit's family. In the entire village and town, old thatched houses and mud houses were rarely seen. Since the first year he came, there had been a renovation policy. The government subsidized and the villagers paid for part of it themselves. They had been completely replaced with bright, clean, safe and stable brick houses. It's not that Yang Rong doesn't do good things, but it feels different, Yang Chongguan commented. When you came back, you should have seen that the street lights in the county had been replaced. Then, I heard that the county's Liberation Road will be built to connect to the highway. In the future, it will also become a new commercial area. Our family has already bought a few pieces of land there. I have 3 pieces and Mom has 2 pieces. If you want, I can also buy a few pieces for you. Yang Ping said happily. These pieces of land will definitely appreciate in the future. When the time comes, we can build a few houses and rent out the shops. Then we will make a lot of money. Now wasn't the time to talk about buying land. Poplar Fruit continued to listen to Yang Chongguan. Aside from the new road, I heard that the county is going to build a cultural plaza. It's said that a feng shui master has instructed that this cultural plaza can gather popularity and wealth. Only then can our hometown prosper. If that's really the case, it's not bad. But why do I feel that these changes are a little flashy? Furthermore, isn't it too fast? It's only been a year, and there's already a road and a plaza. We're not in Guangzhou. Do we have so much money to invest in this? Poplar Fruit asked, puzzled. Poplar Fruit had noticed the street lights when he came back. But now that he thought about it, it wasn't that the street lights in the past were useless or not bright enough. Investing a huge amount of money to change all the street lights in the county didn't seem to improve the quality of life of the people. That's what I mean. Yang Chongguan and Yang Tai drank a few cups of rice wine and spoke more enthusiastically. Now some people think that Yang Rong is doing a political project. Xiaoguan, keep your voice down. Su Jinfeng said worriedly. She stood up and went to the courtyard to lock the gate. It's fine. He will not come to this remote place. Young Chongguan waved his hand and said, "How many times has he been to the countryside in the past year? Other than the 2 times on TV, he has not been to the countryside. Don't worry. Those who don't do good for the people are not good officials." Young Tai knocked on the table. He drank a lot and said, "That's right. Dad, what you said makes sense." Young Chongguan smiled and said, "When I was drinking with a few of my former classmates, they also said the same thing. This young Rong, he is afraid that others will compare him with Secretary Chen." In the past, there was a deputy director of the county committee office. He accidentally talked too much in the office and was reported to Yang Rong by someone with bad intentions. The next day, he was transferred out of the county committee office. I don't know where he went after that. Anyway, he was demoted. Yang Chongguan said, "He is just anxious to do good. So whenever a political project looks more attractive, he wants to do it. He wants to pounce on it." Yang Chongguan said disdainfully. "In short, he is not a good person." Yang Ping rushed to say. Her vulgar but reasonable words attracted the cheers of a few men. Poplar Fruit said with a smile, "It's a pity that Secretary Chen went to Guishan province and benefited the people there. We only have Yang Rong left. He is a parent official who works for the sake of being an official. No matter what, we still have to do business with a conscience. Earn the money that should be earned and do what should be done." Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "Our business can only prosper because of the support of the people in the village, the countryside, and the county. Since we have money and become rich, we still have to consider doing some good deeds within the scope of our ability. I understand. I have learned before that if you are poor, you should take care of yourself. If you are rich, you should help the world." Yang Ping said with a smile. Chapter 1071. Speaking of Yang Rong arrived. However, it was not Yang Rong himself. He had sent a message to Yang Chongguan through his own people in the town, saying that he had heard that Poplar Fruit had come back and wanted to see him. After the person who came left, the Yang family's group of people sat together staring at each other. Regardless of how Yang Rong knew that Poplar Fruit had come back, Poplar Fruit and Yang Rong had no interaction. Why would Yang Rong take the initiative to meet Poplar Fruit? Yang Ping and Yang Chongguan, who were the owners of the Yang family's business, had never received such treatment. Just now, Yang Chongguan had said that his relationship with Yang Rong was lukewarm. Sometimes when he asked to see Yang Rong might not even receive him. His attitude is really annoying. Yang Chongguan drank some wine. He was usually quiet, but now he said angrily, "Why should our Yang Gua go and see him? Who does he think he is? Is he such a big shot? If he wants to see him, why don't he visit him himself?" Okay. Yang Ping slapped him on the back and said, "Fruit will decide whether to go or not. You don't have to be an angry youth here." Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "I'll go. Why shouldn't I go?" No matter what others said about Yang Rong, since Yang Rong was the official of his parents' hometown, and he asked someone to send a message, he should pay him a visit. No matter whether he got along well with him or not, he couldn't leave a bad impression on others. After all, his sister and parents had to live and do business in the county. The next day, Poplar Fruit drove to the county by himself, with a gift in the car. It was bought by Poplar Fruit from abroad. It was a handicraft of the Eiffel Tower. It was not worth much, but it looked good. After being assembled, it was more than half a meter high and looked majestic. It was a very good decoration. In fact, Poplar Fruit had other gifts, such as the Lacoste belt, which was also bought in France. One belt cost tens of thousands of yuan. If it was Chen Longjiang, he would have given him this gift. After all, the relationship between the two families was very close. Chen Longjiang was more like Poplar Fruit's uncle, and they had a very good relationship. It's normal for a nephew to give a gift to an uncle. But forget about Yang Rong. He wasn't familiar with him. Furthermore, he was an official. If he gave such an expensive item, he would probably be charged with bribery if he was investigated. Yang Rong's figure was very different from Chen Longjiang's. He was shorter and chubbier, similar to the locals. However, he could not speak Poplar Fruit's native language, but he could speak Cantonese fluently. Poplar Fruit, it's an honor to meet you. Poplar Fruit was surprised. When Yang Rong saw him, he was very enthusiastic. He shook Poplar Fruit's hand and said with a smile, "I've always heard of your name, but I haven't had the chance to meet you." Poplar Fruit was a little flattered. He smiled and said, "Secretary Yang, what are you talking about? What do I have to make you worry about me?" "Haha, Poplar Fruit, your surname is Yang, and so is mine. We were also from the same family 500 years ago. Since we're from the same family, I'll be frank," Yang Rong said with a smile as he tried to get close to Poplar Fruit. "You've been on the news several times. Not to mention our county, even the leaders in the city often talk about you. It's just that you're too ungrateful. After you became famous, you didn't even go back to your hometown." Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He waved his hand and said, "Secretary Yang, don't say that. How am I famous? It was just a small achievement, but it was still insignificant. To be able to appear on the news broadcast was all thanks to the blessings of others and basking in the glory of others. I'm just a student, an ordinary student who studies knowledge. You don't have to flatter me." No matter what. Yang Rong listened and felt that it was reasonable, but he still smiled and led Poplar Fruit to the sofa to sit down. He said, "You're still a little famous in front of the people of the country. Then, you've also brought honor to all the old folks in our county. When people come here, they'll be surprised and say, 'Oh, this is Poplar Fruit's hometown.' Only a beautiful place like ours can cultivate a talent like you," Yang Rong said in a bureaucratic tone. Poplar Fruit smiled and nodded. Although he didn't agree with Yang Rong's statement, he didn't take it seriously. After chatting with Yang Rong for a while, Yang Rong began to ask if Poplar Fruit had any connections at the top. On the surface, he wanted Poplar Fruit to support the construction work in his hometown. If he knew any big leaders, he could introduce them to them. But in fact, even Poplar Fruit could feel Yang Rong's hidden ambition. Just like what Yang Chongguan said yesterday, he was trying his best to climb up the social ladder. He might not be able to bring better policies to Yanggua's hometown, but from the looks of it, Yang Rong's self-interest was more obvious. Yang Rong learned that Poplar Fruit had won a national award, the National Top 10 University Student. This award wasn't something that ordinary people could get. Although Poplar Fruit was very outstanding, Yang Rong still felt that Poplar Fruit might know some people. Yang Rong pointed out his speculation very straightforwardly. He also told Poplar Fruit that Poplar Fruit could help him, and if there were any benefits, he wouldn't leave out Poplar Fruit. It was very clear. It made Poplar Fruit feel disgusted with him. However, Poplar Fruit didn't show it. Yes, Poplar Fruit did know a lot of big shots. And it was the kind that Yang Rong didn't dare to imagine. Was the first leader of Guangdong province considered a big shot? But Poplar Fruit didn't want to help him, or rather, why would Poplar Fruit, who didn't treat Yang Rong as one of his own, help him? "I can win the award because the school gave me a lot of support. How can I know any big shots? I'm just an ordinary student who stays in school all day long." Poplar Fruit and Yang Rong laughed. Looking at Yang Rong's disappointed face, Poplar Fruit felt that it was a bit dramatic. Although Yang Rong, who didn't achieve his goal, didn't change his face immediately, his attitude wasn't as enthusiastic as before. After chatting with Poplar Fruit for a while, Poplar Fruit sensibly asked not to disturb them, and wanted to leave. After all, Yang Rong was still the head of a county. He still had the magnanimity to send Poplar Fruit out. However, Poplar Fruit felt that Yang Rong wouldn't want to meet him again. Of course, Poplar Fruit himself didn't want to pretend to be polite with him anymore. There is still a big gap with Secretary Chen. Poplar Fruit sighed secretly, thinking while driving. When Chen Longjiang was in office, he knew that Poplar Fruit had a little relationship, and it wasn't a small relationship. At that time, Li Zichao ordered people to frame the Yang family and capture Yang Chongguan. Before Chen Longjiang had time to save him, Zheng Yujie took care of the matter from top to bottom. It was impossible that Chen Longjiang didn't understand the relationship in it. But how magnanimous was Chen Longjiang? He didn't cling to Poplar Fruit or anything. He did real good things for the people in his hometown. Unlike Yang Rong. "I hope it won't bring trouble to the family." Poplar Fruit shook his head and went home. Chapter 1072. Just like last year, Poplar Fruit rushed back to Yangqing early in the morning on the second day of Chinese New Year to bring Fong Beibei home for Chinese New Year. Poplar Fruit wanted to invite Fong Yu's parents over, but they didn't agree. It was probably because their daughter wasn't married yet, so they didn't want to disturb them. At Fong Beibei's house, Poplar Fruit met Fu Chunman. This big sister was quite interesting. She was older than Poplar Fruit, but she still shamelessly asked for a red packet from Poplar Fruit. She even said that she was the matchmaker between Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei. Luckily, Poplar Fruit had prepared a few red packets for the nieces and nephews of the Fangs. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to bring Fong Beibei away. On the way, Fong Beibei asked Poplar Fruit curiously, "Hey, why isn't Kiki here?" "She's at home pestering Jia." She received less red packets than Jia during Chinese New Year, so she kept pestering Jia to give her the extra money. Poplar Fruit smiled and glanced at Fong Beibei. "Isn't that what you taught her?" In the past, she didn't know how to count, and would happily grab any money. Now she's become smarter. Fong Beibei covered her mouth and laughed. "You can't blame me for that. It must be because you, as a father, favored one and discriminated against the other. You gave little Jia a lot more, and then you tried to fool Chi-Chi with what you gave her." Poplar Fruit chuckled. This was just as Fong Beibei guessed. Fong Beibei's hands gently dug into the white bag in front of her. Luckily, it wasn't a branded bag. She hesitated for a while before looking at Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit was driving, so he didn't notice Fong Beibei's little movements. He thought that Fong Beibei was sleepy. He slowed down the car and reached out to adjust the angle of Fong Beibei's seat. "If you're tired, take a rest. I'll call you when we arrive." "Uncle." Fong Beibei held Poplar Fruit's hand and shook her head. "No, I have something to discuss with you." Poplar Fruit patted her hand and put it back on the steering wheel. He smiled. "Okay, but don't say anything too exciting. Although I haven't seen you for more than a week, we're on the highway." Fong Beibei blushed. She rolled her eyes at him and said, "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking to you, I'm serious." Yanghua chuckled and didn't continue to make jokes. "Here's the thing," Fong Beibei said. "Didn't you go home last weekend?" "I went to the aid station by myself. There weren't many volunteers coming to help during the New Year, so I went over to help clean up." Poplar Fruit knew that Fong Beibei didn't want to complain to him about the hard work at the aid station. He nodded and continued to listen. At that time, Grandpa Zhang and Grandma Lu's families came over. Fong Beibei got to the point. They wanted them to go home for the New Year. They said that they hadn't been home for 6 or 7 years. There were also people on the internet talking about how unfilial they were as children. If they went home, what about the aid station? Poplar Fruit frowned and asked. "Of course, I'm not saying that the old people shouldn't go home for the New Year. It's just that the aid station dragged them down." Fong Beibei nodded and said, "Yes." Grandpa Zhang and Grandma Lu refused to go home. They were worried about the dogs and quarreled with their families for a long time. "Then what are you going to do?" Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. Fong Beibei had just used the word discuss, which meant that she already had her own ideas. Grandpa Zhang and Grandma Lu are old, and they usually can't do a lot of heavy work, Fong Beibei said with worry in her eyes. They were already retired, but now they are almost 70 years old, and they are still busy at the aid station. They can't even reunite with their families during the New Year. So, I'm wondering if we can take over the aid station from them. Fong Beibei looked at Poplar Fruit's expression and said with courage, "Then we will operate it just like your remote teaching, and make it a public service." "You mean you want to take care of this stray dog aid station on behalf of Grandpa Zhang and Grandma Lu?" Poplar Fruit asked. "Well, if it were me, Grandpa Zhang and Grandma Lu would be more at ease." Fong Beibei asked hesitantly. "However, it may be a little far from home. I don't know if you agree with my idea." She was not worried about Poplar Fruit's opinion of the aid station, but whether the distance of the aid station would make Poplar Fruit worry. After all, even if they drove, it would take an hour and a half to get to the stray dog aid station from home, and the aid station was quite desolate. Poplar Fruit had always been very worried about Fong Beibei going to help alone. "Baby, you want to inherit Grandpa Zhang's public service. This is a good thing." Why would I disagree? Poplar Fruit looked at Fong Beibei, who was digging into her bag again, and laughed. Really? Fong Beibei looked at Poplar Fruit with some surprise and asked. Of course. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Before he finished speaking, Fong Beibei happily came up and kissed him on the face. Then she sat back in her seat and giggled happily. However, have you thought about how you will make this aid station better after you take over? Poplar Fruit asked. Ah. Fong Beibei said with some stupidity. What else do we need to do? Don't we continue to adopt those stray dogs, then treat and feed them? And then? Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. Then we will continue to invest money in rescuing more stray dogs and cats. Fong Beibei said with bright eyes. That's not how public service works. Yanghua patted her head and said helplessly. If you really want the best for these dogs, then don't just think about paying for it. Of course, we will definitely pay for it. After all, we are doing charity. Poplar Fruit said quickly as he drove. For example, while you are rescuing these stray dogs, you can also find suitable adoptive families for them, just like how you persuaded me to adopt Goldie. But all year round, I haven't seen many people come to adopt these poor dogs. Fong Beibei said sadly. You can use Weibo or WeChat to appeal to people to adopt stray dogs. Introduce these stray dogs that have been treated and trained, and there is no difference between them and pet shops. You can establish a long-term and extensive publicity channel. Poplar Fruit said. Wait a minute. Fong Beibei took out the notebook in her bag and wrote it down like a studious child. Then, since you are all treating these stray dogs, why don't you open a pet hospital? Poplar Fruit felt that he was full of inspiration and said with a smile, rescue station, pet hospital, adoption center, 3 in 1, absolutely effective, let me tell you. Think about it. Here at the rescue station, we treat the stray cats and dogs, take care of them, train them, and then send them to the adoption center of the pet hospital. The pet hospital can treat people who have pets. When they see their pets, they can learn about the stories of the stray dogs and see their real situation. Poplar Fruit said. Fong Beibei suddenly realized, and she continued. Then through understanding, they will consider adopting them. In this way, the possibility of these dogs being adopted will be greater. Uncle, you are so amazing. Looking at Fong Beibei's overjoyed look, Poplar Fruit smiled and said, they may not necessarily adopt them. After all, they have their own pets, but they can introduce their friends to adopt them. Pet owners should have their own circle of friends. Besides, the profit of the pet hospital can also be used as a part of the subsidy of the rescue station. In this way, we only need to invest a relatively small amount of money every year to make the rescue station operate well. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Next to him, Fong Beibei, who was watching Poplar Fruit, had become a little fan of Poplar Fruit, and her eyes were shining like stars. This is the inspiration from watching Divine Dog Xiaoqi, but I have to complain, the acting of the actors in this drama is too bad. Chapter 1073. After the Chinese New Year, Fong Beibei went back to Yangcheng and started to drive around in her Beetle. Grandpa Zhang and Grandma Lu accepted Fong Beibei's suggestion. Not only did they give Fong Beibei their rescue station, but they also helped her find a few veterinarians who had been helping her all these years. This was very important. Although the pet hospital was still far from opening, it was not easy to find a suitable veterinarian. With the help of these veterinarians, the pet hospital and rescue station would have enough people in the early stages. In the later stages, with the help of these veterinarians, there would be more new blood. The rescue station and adoption center were registered as non-profit organizations, but the pet hospital was not. The pet hospital existed as a for-profit private organization. However, Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei, who paid for it, would not become shareholders of the pet hospital. All the profits of the pet hospital, excluding the operating costs, would go to the rescue station and adoption center. However, compared to the rescue station, which already had a scale and needed to be improved, the pet hospital had to be built from scratch. Regardless of whether the pet hospital would open branches in every district of Yangcheng in the future, it was still a problem to find a place to open a pet hospital. Where did this come from? Poplar Fruit asked, dumbfounded. 2 days ago, Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei were looking for information about stores for rent on the internet. Today, Fong Beibei came back with a house deed. Sister Yujia gave it to me, Fong Beibei said, protecting the house deed. You can't take it. Why would Poplar Fruit want to take it? He reached out his hand to see where it was. He looked at Fong Beibei in surprise and asked, Why would she give you the house deed? Didn't I post it on my WeChat moments yesterday? Fong Beibei smiled proudly and said, When Sister Yujia saw it, she called me and asked me out. Then she gave me the deed. He said that it was the house of your former publishing house, and it would be perfect to transform it into a pet hospital. Poplar Fruit knew that the publishing house had moved to a better place, and the old building had been vacated. Yesterday, Fong Beibei posted a post on her WeChat moments complaining that it was too difficult to locate a pet hospital. Poplar Fruit also knew about this. But Poplar Fruit scratched his head and asked, What's wrong? Have you been keeping in touch? Fong Beibei shook her head and said, Not really. The last time Sister Yujia came over, we added each other on WeChat, and then we greeted each other during the new year. We didn't talk much. But Sister Yujia is really generous. She donated such a building to us. Looking at Fong Beibei's happy face, Poplar Fruit knew that the building met her requirements. Now that he thought about it, it was true. The publishing house used to be a small 4-story building. It looked clean on the outside and was not too old, and it would not be a problem if the interior was renovated. The reason why Zheng Yujie decided to move was that the building's location was not good. It was surrounded by residential areas, and was not as tall as the commercial building they were living in now. However, this disadvantage was a bit of an advantage for the pet hospital. Since it was a residential area, there would be a lot of demand. Even if there was no subway, it would be convenient to take the bus. Besides, most of the people who had money to raise pets and come to the pet hospital had their own private cars, so transportation would not be a problem. That's it. Let's not choose anymore. I have a hard time looking for a house. Fong Beibei pouted and said, Tomorrow, I will ask Brother Mosquito to help me find a construction team to renovate it, okay? Oh right, I haven't decided how to renovate it yet. She flipped through her big notebook, looking confused. Poplar Fruit stretched out a finger, gently knocked Fong Beibei's forehead, and said with a smile, Silly, aren't you afraid that you will be hit by a sugar-coated bullet, and then be sold by others? Although Zheng Yujie was honest and never played any tricks with Fong Beibei, every interaction between the two made Poplar Fruit scared. He was afraid that the two girls with different personalities would fight. Although it was a bit unfair to Zheng Yujie, Poplar Fruit still wanted Fong Beibei to be happy and not be hurt by love. Even if it was her own imagination, he would not allow it. I'm not afraid. Uncle, you won't just watch me be bullied. Fong Beibei smiled and grabbed Poplar Fruit's finger. She bulged her two big eyes and made a fierce face. It seemed that if Poplar Fruit knocked her forehead again, she would fight with Poplar Fruit. Well, Poplar Fruit was quite infatuated with Fong Beibei's trust. Although the location was settled, Fong Beibei still had a lot to do. The pet hospital could not be opened in a short period of time, at least not by the end of the year. Fong Beibei began to modify the rescue station according to her discussion with Poplar Fruit. First, she introduced more advanced and more automatic equipment. Then, she strengthened the connection with the volunteer teams that she often cooperated with, and sorted out the volunteers' schedules and work rules with more scientific methods. Secondly, she hired professional social workers to help take care of the rescue station. After all, volunteers alone could not do all the work. Later, she would buy a special rescue car, set up a special Weibo, WeChat public account, and so on. These all needed time and energy to be perfected slowly. Of course, Fong Beibei was not alone. She had many volunteer friends who had helped at the rescue station in the past few years, as well as Chun Anlin and other friends who had nothing to do but came to help. Everyone gathered together to provide ideas, wanting to make the rescue station better. Oh yes, the rescue station had changed its name. It was no longer called the Stray Dog Rescue Station, but a more practical name, Stray Pet Rehabilitation Center. As the name implied, It was to let these little angels with broken wings, which was also the logo of the center, under the care of caring people, get rid of the haze of wandering early, and then find a family that could give them more love. Poplar Fruit could not help much for the time being, because at the beginning of the school year, Poplar Fruit was too busy. First, he had to restart his teaching tasks for this semester, and then several universities invited him to give speeches. These had all been pushed back. At the end of the month, Poplar Fruit would lead the representatives of the remote teaching student volunteers to Liang City to bring a happy start to school for the children in the mountains. Oh yes, before leaving, Poplar Fruit also went on a business trip to Jiangnan to have a mobilization meeting with the Chinese research team that Chen Zongdai had mentioned before. Chapter 1074. Poplar Fruit arrived at Jiangnan University early in the morning. Although he did not see them in person, when Poplar Fruit saw the nameplates on the conference table, beads of sweat immediately appeared on his forehead. They were all famous great scholars. For example, Professor Yuan Xinlin from the Department of Chinese at Beijing University. Not only did he publish many works on ancient Chinese studies, but he also served as the Dean of the Chinese Traditional Culture Research Center of Beijing University. Professor Lu Shufeng from Shuimu University. In the 1990s, he took the lead in promoting the exchange between Chinese and Western scholars, and promoted the spread of Chinese traditional culture. He was also an honorary professor at the University of Cambridge in England. There were more than 10 other great scholars like these two who were at a height that even Chen Zongdai had to look up to. There was also a retired professor from Dongshan University. Although he had retired from teaching, he had never stopped writing. Now he was serving as a consultant for the country's cultural and educational affairs. The reason why Poplar Fruit was surprised and terrified was because he had read a lot of works by Chinese scholars in order to write his thesis. Most of them were works by these authoritative experts. If he were to say that he was an ant trying his best to climb up in the field of Chinese language research, then these scholars were mountains that he could only look up to. This was not an exaggeration. Compared to other languages, Chinese and Chinese traditional culture was as vast as the ocean. Poplar Fruit was only at the beginning, and he had not been able to study it in depth. However, compared to most of the Chinese students, Poplar Fruit was the tallest among the shorties. It couldn't be helped. Utilitarian university training, these traditional cultures that had little commercial value in modern society, were far less attractive than chicken soup for the soul articles that groaned about nothing. Poplar Fruit finally understood why the professor said he was lucky to be able to stand side by side with these scholars who received subsidies from the State Council. Poplar Fruit was terrified and excited. The old professors came in one after another. Poplar Fruit, as a junior, did not dare to sit arrogantly. He was busy making tea and pouring water. However, unlike what Poplar Fruit thought, he was not looked down upon or even ignored by these scholars because of his young age and inexperience. Instead, before the leaders of the Ministry of Education arrived, they kindly pulled Poplar Fruit's hand and asked him to sit down and talk to them. Of course, at the beginning, they tested Poplar Fruit to see if he was the real inventor of the word-splitting method. They wanted to see if he had real talent. In the end, Poplar Fruit answered smoothly, which made the old professors very satisfied. "It's a pity to stay at Higashiyama University," said Professor Yuan as he patted Poplar Fruit's shoulder and said, "English major. Why don't you go to a university in Beijing? With your talent, you can choose any university in the country, including our capital university. You can choose any university you want. You have to know that in terms of academic atmosphere and heritage, the focus of the country is in Beijing. Yes, come to Shuimu University. Shuimu University's Chinese department is the best in the country," said Professor Lu Shufeng. "Poplar Fruit, if you come, I can personally be your doctorate supervisor. Just say yes, and I'll call someone to send you an invitation." This was blatantly poaching. Professor Yin of Higashiyama University acted as if the chaos in front of him had nothing to do with him. "Professor Yin, are you really that generous? After all, he is a student of your university." Professor Yin was older than the other professors, so when the others teased him, they still addressed him respectfully. Professor Yin said cheerfully, It's okay, it's okay. Xiaoyang is under Xiaochen. If you want to be anxious, it's not my turn. You don't understand. Professor Su, one of Professor Yun's close friends, immediately exposed him. He laughed and said, Professor Yun is calm. How can poplar fruit be so easily taken away by these guys? Every year, Beijing University and Shuimu University would send people to other provinces to compete for the top students in the college entrance examination. This was nothing new. Now they were fighting openly and covertly to snatch Yanghua. The professors from other universities were somewhat uncomfortable, but they could not say anything. When they heard the professor's words, they immediately became interested and asked, Really? Why do you say that? Professor Su looked at Professor Yin and saw that he did not stop him. He smiled and said, Harvard University didn't even succeed in poaching poplar fruit. What do you think Beijing University and Shuimu University can attract poplar fruit? Harvard rejected him? Harvard wants to poach poplar fruit? The first question was a cry of surprise, but the second question was a question of doubt. It's obvious that you don't read foreign journals. Professor Yin opened his mouth and said, When it comes to learning, even if you're from the Chinese department, you can't just shut yourself in. You have to pay more attention to foreign research papers. Don't think that just because our country's research is the best. Poplar fruit's paper was published abroad. Professor Su skipped Professor Yun's preaching and explained to the others, It's a Harvard journal. Last November, they told the media that they wanted to recruit poplar fruit. The media doesn't count, right? The media is always fooling people. Maybe it's our own translation that made a mistake. A professor asked in confusion. For so many years, I've never seen Harvard take the initiative to recruit a Chinese student. Old Chen, you can't look at things with your old eyes. Professor Su laughed and said, It's true. They even sent the acceptance letter. Professor Yin told me about it during Chinese New Year. He was so happy. Isn't it? Everyone could see the smile on Professor Yun's face. It made them clench their teeth. However, the old men were not done gossiping. Poplar fruit was being asked questions by a few professors. The old men listened with great interest as Professor Su continued. Actually, it's not because of Higashiyama University's long history, strong strength, and interesting. Why is that? Is it because of Professor Yin? A professor asked with a smile. He said it with a hint of flattery. It has nothing to do with Professor Yin. Professor Yin retired a long time ago. Even if he stayed at Higashiyama University, poplar fruit might not become Professor Yun's student, Professor Su said. Old Su, how do you know? I really like Little Yang. Who knows, maybe I'll be hired back to be Little Yang's teacher. Old Professor Yun said with a sly wink like a child. Come on, you're already 85 years old. Why don't you stay in Jiangnan to recuperate? Why go to Yangqing to teach students? Professor Su was not young, but in front of Professor Yin, the pot calling the kettle black was still the same. The other old professors also laughed and said, Professor Yin is a man of noble character. He's dedicated to teaching students. Chapter 1075. Professor Yin stopped joking. He laughed heartily and waved his hand. I'm getting old. I don't have the energy to be a teacher anymore. There was one thing that Professor Yin did not tell them. Even though he would not return to teaching, his student, the most senior professor in Higashiyama University's Chinese department, who was also the teacher who taught poplar fruit, would take over his responsibility of teaching poplar fruit. This year, poplar fruit would graduate with a PhD. Higashiyama University would continue to arrange for poplar fruit to pursue a PhD in Chinese. Since poplar fruit had this level, Higashiyama University would naturally spare no effort to train him. Therefore, poplar fruit was not his student, but he was still his student. That was not bad. Double PhD was an unattainable goal for many people. There were very few people in China who could achieve this level. However, for poplar fruit, it was obviously not a big problem. If it's not Professor Yin, then what's the reason? A few old professors asked nosily. Girlfriend. Stupid. Professor Su pointed at them and laughed. His girlfriend is also from Higashiyama University? A few old professors suddenly realized. They immediately laughed and said, "If that's the case, we won't poach poplar fruit. We'll poach his girlfriend. Poplar fruit will be coming soon, right?" Poach his girlfriend? Professor Su shook his head and sighed. Do you think it's easy? His girlfriend is a mathematics genius who won the special prize of the American Mathematical Modeling Competition for 2 years. The mathematics department treats her like a treasure. Do you think you can just poach her like that? The professors usually did not read the gossip on the internet. Now they were at a disadvantage. However, they were just joking. Now they praised. Is that so? Then these 2 children would be incredible. They're both geniuses. Golden boy and jade girl. Professor Su commented. This is something we can't be envious of. I can only say that Higashiyama University's grave must have been on fire in its previous life. Even if there was a big fire and green smoke, it wouldn't have been able to exchange for such good luck. Old Professor Yun stroked his beard and smiled indifferently. Even though he was extremely pleased with himself, he did not reveal the slightest bit of it on his face. When they were almost done, the leader of the Ministry of Education who had rushed over from Beijing began to preside over the meeting. He briefly introduced some of the macroscopic goals that everyone knew about. The main goal of this research team is still the word-splitting method that Xiaoyang proposed. The word disassembly method is a brand new but promising Chinese teaching theory. This is something that everyone has already verified. The leader smiled and said, but how can we further improve this word-splitting method, make it more compatible with real-life teaching, and make Chinese learning easier? I'll have to trouble all of you. I'm not an expert, so I don't have any good suggestions to give everyone. I'm just here to deliver the instructions of our country's leaders. The reform and innovation of Chinese teaching is not only a method of innovation, but also the hope of our country's more than 5,000 years of excellent culture to spread around the world. The merit is now, and the benefits are in the future. The leader said seriously. Everyone, our country, our people, and our president all attach great importance to this discovery. We also hope that it can truly become an important help for the spread of Chinese culture, and for the Western world to understand our country. Therefore, everyone must pay attention to it, unite, and strive to put this theory to use as soon as possible. The leader said in the end. Everyone knew how to be polite, and understood the principles. The leader spoke a lot, but in reality, only Poplar Fruit listened attentively. The other professors just smiled and clapped. They were not very excited. For them, instead of listening to these emotional words, it was better to spend more time discussing how to do this research. Fortunately, in the field of expertise, the leader could not get a word in edgewise. He could only listen with a smile. Then, as if he understood, he reminded Poplar Fruit from time to time, Comrade Yang, everyone here is a senior, the pillars of our country. What they say makes sense. You're still young, so you should learn more from them. Although it was some meaningless words, what the leader said was indeed correct. The older the ginger, the spicier it was. Knowledge was like fine wine, the longer it was brewed, the more mellow it became. The old professor's understanding of Chinese was still superior. Under their lively discussion, some of the weak points in Poplar Fruit's theory were dug out one after another. Poplar Fruit was really convinced. Although his talent could be described as monstrous, Chinese was not something that he could learn thoroughly by reading books for a year. Under the guidance of the old professors, Poplar Fruit realized that he was actually still half a bucket of water. He urgently needed to improve in all aspects. However, after the leader left, Poplar Fruit found a problem. It was said that it was a research team, but why did it seem like he was the only one researching? To be precise, it seemed like Poplar Fruit was researching his theory, and the old professors were researching him? Little Yang, will your 3 contrasts conflict with the onomatopoeia in ancient Chinese? The first part of the explanation was okay, but the old professor's advice hit the nail on the head. This small law might need to be made by Poplar Fruit to make an exception. However, the latter part of the sentence was a bit wrong. Little Yang, you have to analyze this problem from the perspective of, go back and think about it. Don't take it lightly. I want to see the results of your thinking in 2 weeks. Oh, you don't have my email yet, right? I'll write it to you. How did it become homework? Moreover, all the old professors seemed to be picking on Poplar Fruit and giving him questions as if they were not in the same research team. Poplar Fruit was the researcher, and they were just bystanders or supervisors. Was this considered oppression because of seniority? Poplar Fruit was in pain but happy. After being guided by so many great scholars for a few hours, Poplar Fruit felt like he had opened up his conception and governor vessels. He only needed to fill up his chi to become a master like them. Of course, this was all an illusion. Poplar Fruit's road of growth was still very long. However, Poplar Fruit was already very lucky to have such a large group of near master-level professors guiding him. How many people in the whole of China could receive such treatment? That being said, all the heavy responsibilities, such as the rise of a nation, cultural revision, were on Poplar Fruit's shoulders. Poplar Fruit was also a bit overwhelmed. Ultraman was the only one who fought the monsters on Earth. The children did not get tired of watching him, but Ultraman was also exhausted. Little Yang, you can't slack off. Whether our research team can produce results or not depends on you. When they parted, the old professor's tone was solemn and relaxed. They patted Poplar Fruit's shoulder and laughed as they walked away. So cool? That's right, since Poplar Fruit was here, it should be cool. Chapter 1076. More than 120 students, as well as more than a dozen teachers sent by the Department of Education and the school, arrived at Liang City, which they had been looking forward to for a long time. The volunteer activities of so many people had never been seen before in the history of the major universities in Guangdong Province. Even the graduate student group of Higashiyama University, which had once won the award, only had a dozen people. What's more, this was a cross-provincial, large-scale, and fully funded volunteer activity. It was the first time in the history of domestic public welfare. Zheng Mingsheng attached great importance to this. Before Poplar Fruit left, he called him over and repeatedly told him that he must take care of these children with beautiful hearts and bring them back safely. Indeed, Poplar Fruit, who had never been a class monitor since childhood, had a big deficiency in leadership. For example, as the president of the remote teaching club, he played the role of a spiritual leader at most. Wasn't the daily management of the staff taken on by Wang Yuba? If it weren't for Wang Yuba's relatively weak prestige among so many universities, Poplar Fruit would have wanted Wang Yuba to take over the position of president. This time leading the team was also a challenge for Poplar Fruit. Although there were teachers helping, in order to maintain the order of the entire team, Poplar Fruit shouted until his voice was hoarse all the way. Not only that, in order to ensure the safety of the volunteer representatives, Poplar Fruit had been running nonstop in Liang City for the past few days. He went up and down the mountain, slept for 3 hours, and then continued to go up and down the mountain. He had recorded in his small notebook that the folkways were tough and prone to conflicts. Even if it was Yang Gua, it was still a bit too much for her to handle. But fortunately, the results were gratifying. Every village was overjoyed at the arrival of the university volunteers. Not only did they welcome them warmly, some villages even prepared the most exciting dances of the Miao people to welcome them. There were also some villages that, upon hearing about the itinerary, could not bear to slaughter pigs and goats during the new year. They waited for the arrival of the teachers before taking out the meat to welcome them. Yang Gua heard that there were a few volunteers who were so touched that they cried. Of course, as the deputy mayor in charge of education, Chen Longjiang was also very generous. He gave his car to Poplar Fruit and also mobilized the Department of Education and the local government's buses to pick up these university volunteers. He did not arrange a grand and luxurious welcome banquet. Instead, he chose to send reporters and cameramen from the TV stations in the city. They were divided into several groups to record the smiles and tears of all the college student volunteers and the children over the past few days. Some of them would be selected as news material, but most of the records would be edited into videos and uploaded to the website of the remote teaching. Every participating student and the children they cared for would keep the videos as the most precious memories in their lives. However, 3 days of interaction was always too short. In the blink of an eye, It was time to say goodbye again. Although the mountains in the morning were like giant dragons lying in the mist, although the flowers in early spring were blooming brilliantly, although the slightly muddy mountain road was already filled with the sounds of insects and birds, at this moment, no one was in the mood to appreciate the picturesque scenery. They were silent along the way, and the oppressive atmosphere made them feel flustered and uncomfortable. Similar to the situation in many villages in the city, all the children in the Xiong family village's school had their hands held by the adults as they walked for an hour on the mountain path, sending these big brothers and sisters who brought them endless joy down the mountain. How they wished that this mountain road, which usually made them afraid, disgusted, and bored, could be walked a little longer, just a little longer. However, no matter how long the mountain road was, it would come to an end. At the bottom, the car sent by the county was already waiting at the small store at the foot of the mountain. It was difficult for them to meet each other, and it was also difficult for them to part with each other. Along the way, they were reluctant to part with each other as they gathered in front of the bus. The pure eyes of the children and the most sincere feelings made the university volunteers wipe away their tears. Xiaobing, don't cry. I promise you that I will come back to play with you next time. The female student who comforted the child said that she would not cry, but she was also crying. The boys were a little better. Although their eyes were red, at least they didn't cry out loud. They pretended to be strong and gently patted the shoulders of the children who were holding on to their hands. They said very manly, Okay. A hero does not cry easily. We will meet again in the future. That's right. It's not like we will ignore you when we go back. We can still see each other online. When that time comes, don't let me catch you two mischievous rascals secretly copying other students' homework. But now all these deterrents were useless. The two mischievous rascals were also wiping their tears and smiling brightly without their front teeth. On Poplar Fruit's side, Xiong Xiaofeng and the other kids were also holding on to his hand reluctantly. Uncle Yang, you promised me that you will bring Kiki along next time, Xiong Xiaofeng said reluctantly. You also promised me that you will study hard this semester and strive to get good results in the junior high school exams. Poplar Fruit laughed and ruffled Xiong Xiaofeng's hair. Uncle Yang, I will help you supervise him. Xiong Anshuan jumped up and down and said restlessly. Xiong Xiaofeng said unhappily. Anshuan, you are 2 years younger than me. It's not up to you to supervise me. Xiong Anshuan puffed out his chest as if Yang Guo was backing him up. He said, My grades are better than yours. I've been the first in class, but you're always the first in class. You're the last. Okay. Don't quarrel. Poplar Fruit smiled and patted Xiong Anshuan's head gently, then said to Xiong Xiaofeng, Anshuan's starting point is good, but your results are bad. No wonder others are talking about you. However, learning is something that depends on self-awareness. You have to have the heart to work hard. Xiong Xiaofeng nodded and said seriously, I know for Kiki, I will study hard. Well, his own daughter became the motivation for other little boys to study hard. This feeling was weird, but Poplar Fruit didn't think too much about it. He just smiled and patted Xiong Xiaofeng's shoulder to encourage him. After lunch, all the volunteer students were sent to the bus prepared by the Liang city government. The return trip was covered by them, so Yang Guo could finally breathe a sigh of relief. You have to be careful. I won't be going back with everyone. Poplar Fruit said goodbye to a few of his friends who were volunteers from other schools. He smiled and said, The train is at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Let's meet again in Yangcheng. After working hard for a few days, Poplar Fruit finally ushered in a small vacation. He was going to Kunming to meet up with Song Jiwen and the others. The two girls that he missed the most were already waiting for him there. Fang Bebe rubbed Kiki's hair and laughed. After giving Kiki some French fries, Fang Bebe didn't allow the little girl to eat. She directly poured all the French fries in the bag to Song Jiwen. Then she spread her hands and said to Kiki, You can't eat anymore. You see, Mama doesn't want to eat. Because Fang Bebe set an example, Kiki didn't make a scene. She just reluctantly watched Song Jiwen eat the French fries. Her pink tongue licked the taste of salt on her mouth. Fong Bei then fed Chi-Chi some bread and vegetables from the hamburger, as well as some chicken that she tore off from the crispy wrapper that wasn't fried. After that, she ate the rest of the hamburger that she tore apart. Is it enough? Do you want me to buy more for you? Song Jiwen asked. Fong Bei shook her head and said with a smile, No need, you don't have to eat so much tonight. Sister-in-law, help me take care of Kiki. I'll go borrow some water to make some milk powder for Kiki. Fong Bei carried a small bag and walked to the station staff. After discussing for a while, the staff brought her to the boiling water room. She took the milk bottle and walked towards the waiting room. Fong Bei met someone at the door. She moved her body slightly and smiled at the other party. She took the initiative to move aside. However, her good intentions didn't earn the other party's gratitude. They were both women. The other party was wearing black clothes and a cap. Her face couldn't be seen clearly, but she seemed to be from Xinjiang. She glanced coldly at Fong Bei and walked straight out. Fong Bei felt as if she had fallen into an ice cave in an instant. The other party's gaze was too cold. However, it was only for a moment. Fong Bei thought that she was hallucinating. The warm milk bottle brought Fong Bei back to reality. She curiously looked at the back of the woman in black, shook her head, and returned to the temporary waiting room. It was almost 8:30. After Kiki finished drinking the milk, she gradually became sleepy. She fell asleep in Fong Bei's arms with her head drooped. Sleep if you're sleepy? Fong Bei took out a coat from the bag beside her and wrapped Kiki in her arms. She gently stroked her hair and said, Kiki wants to wait for Papa. Chi-Chi struggled for a moment before raising her sleepy little head and blinking her eyes hard. She mumbled, You're right. Poplar Fruit had been on a business trip for almost a week. Kiki had missed her father for a long time. Today, she was so happy to welcome her father. How could she bear to sleep? In the past, the little fellow was not so tenacious. Today she calculated the time by herself. There was less than an hour left. She would be able to see her most beloved Papa soon. She had to wait. Thus Kiki nestled in the warm and comfortable arms of Mama Ma. She smacked her lips and waited with her eyelids that were about to fall. Finally, after an unknown amount of time, Fong Bei's phone vibrated. Fong Bei picked up the phone and handed it to Chen Anlin, indicating for her to listen because Kiki had just closed her eyes. In the end, she was still a child. After waiting for a while, she was drowned by sleepiness. Looking at the corner of Kiki's mouth curled up, she wondered if she had met her father in her sleep. Otherwise, how could she be so happy? Baby, I'm almost there. The train is about to enter the station. Poplar Fruit's hearty laughter came from the phone. Brother Yang, I'm in lawn. Chen Anlin chuckled and said in a low voice, Don't be too loud. Kiki just fell asleep. Well, where are you? I'll get off the train and find you later. You don't need to come over. Poplar Fruit laughed. Brother Yang said that we don't need to go to the station to pick him up. He'll get off the train and come over directly. Chen Anlin lowered her voice and said to Fong Bei, the main reason was that Kiki was sleeping. If they moved now, the little fellow might wake up. Fong Bei was still hesitating. She was the same as Kiki. She missed Poplar Fruit very much. She couldn't wait to see him when Poplar Fruit got off the train. Song Jiwen waved his hand and took the phone from Chen Anlin. He told Poplar Fruit the location of the temporary waiting room they were in, and then hung up the phone. How old are we now? He'll come over by himself. Song Jiwen laughed. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.